Good evening. I now call the September 14th meeting of the Wallingford-Swarthmore School Board to order. Pursuant to policy 006.1, we are holding this meeting remotely given the current public health crisis. In opening, I will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would like to start by asking our board secretary, Ms. Fagora, for a roll call.
Mr. Ballas?
Here.
Ms. Domino?
Here.
Dr. Downey?
Here.
Dr. Huff?
Here.
Mr. Cudis?
Present.
Mrs. Lentz?
Here.
Mrs. Walkman?
Here.
Dr. Grandy?
Here.
Mr. Berman?
Here.
Dr. Palmer?
Here.
Dr. Grandy, we have 8 voting members present.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fagora. I want to start with board announcements. The board did meet prior to this meeting in executive session to discuss personnel, the employment of a particular administrative employee. I would also like to open the meeting with several comments. This is our first board meeting, of course, since the start of the school year. And while I know it has been far from a typical start to the school year, it's exciting to finally have kids back in school and engaging with their teachers and classmates. Back to school is always an exciting time of year. I can say my own kids were certainly a little annoyed when we made them take their first day of school pictures this year. But the beginning of school is always special, and I welcome all of our students and families back. I also know how much discussion is taking place in our community about when kids can come back face to face. We will begin that conversation tonight and will act soon if rates remain stable. Dr. Palmer and the administrative team will share more details during our focus topic discussion. I'll just say that when we had to make the difficult decision back in August to start all virtual, it was at a time when there was a large increase in cases in our county. That was back in late July and early August. And since then, our case rates per 100,000 have improved a great deal, about half of what they were in late July. Our weekly test positivity rates have also improved. And as we look ahead to decisions, I know some want to know what we are following. And while it would be easy again to say that there was a single number, there are several things that are important. The first being the rate of new cases in our county and in our district. The second being the positivity rate in our county, which is data that's not available just for our district. Third, the rates in the areas immediately around us. And lastly, and very importantly, the trend. Are rates going up, going down, or are they stable? And that last point is very important. The district is ready to welcome students back. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. The key factor has been whether we have low enough rates that allow us to bring our students back safely. And as I've said before, I know families will have different views about the right time to come back to our school buildings. And I said it before, every single point of view is valid. Everyone has legitimate concerns and priorities. And I want to assure everyone that is listening tonight that I know every member of this board cares deeply about all of the students in our district. And every action, every discussion is always about the same thing, which is how can we do best for our students both now and in the future. And that is what will continue to guide us in every decision. It is expected that people will disagree on the best path forward. However, we can discuss and debate this with civility and model for our students what public debate can be in a community as great as this one. I also want to assure everyone that all of the emails you send get read by our board. We are listening, we are following the science. We will always aim to do what is best for health and education and the overall well-being of our students. In the end, I do believe we all want the same thing, to do what is best for the kids in our community. Lastly, before we move on, I do want to share that we had a board member, Damon Orsetti, resign last week. And this followed inappropriate and unacceptable language on social media. His resignation was effective last Wednesday, and it is important that our board is a model for our students and other community members and hold ourselves to the highest standards. We will appoint a replacement, and more information is available at the district school board webpage. Thank you for listening, and let me turn things over to Dr. Palmer for her report this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Grandy. But before I do my report this evening, we actually have our new student representative. Mira Patel is starting us off with her first report at this meeting, and she'll actually precede me tonight. So Mira, if you'd like to, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Palmer. West had a successful back-to-school night for all students who have West teachers. This includes some children from other schools on September 10th, with over 600 parents attending our live Zoom. Teachers then hosted live sessions with their students' parents. Principal Savage thanks all the parents on the elementary level for their support in helping us launch a successful 2021 school year virtually. At NPE, the staff and community are excited to begin another school year. While not quite a normal beginning, the teachers and staff had an opportunity to briefly meet and introduce themselves at the student bundle pickup in August. Our staff enjoyed the opportunity to share a friendly smile and pass along useful materials for student learning. The first 2 weeks of school have been focused on establishing a sense of community in each classroom. Principal Heinley shared that Speedy, the NPE mascot, has even joined in on the daily morning meetings to say hello to students. The daily morning meetings are a wonderful opportunity for students and staff to share a bit about themselves and create a positive atmosphere in which future learning can occur. Classes are now up and running, and students are in the early stages of learning new concepts and skills in their classrooms. At SRS, Dr. Tug is happy to report that the first day of school presented lots of smiles to be seen through Zoom. Teachers and staff are planning for a virtual back-to-school night on September 15th at 7 p.m. Let's work together to give them a bright cheer from the SRS community. Consider setting aside time on Monday, September 14th, or Tuesday, September 15th, before 5 p.m. to chalk the block at SRS. Bring your sidewalk chalk and write an inspirational message, draw a picture, or make a game such as tic-tac-toe. And please practice social distancing to stay safe. Join SRS for Spirit Night at Renata Pizza between 5 and 10 p.m. on Tuesday, September 22nd. A portion of all orders will be donated to SRS Home and School. Just mention SRS as you order and enjoy. Come out to support a local business and SRS. Feel free to pass along this information to friends and family. Plus, there will be an appearance by special guest Swarthmore Mayor Marty Spiegel. On Thursday, September 24th at 7 p.m. via Zoom, there will be the next edition to the SRS Home and School Seminar Series titled Helping Kids Feel Secure Amid Uncertainty. Now that school is restarting with a remote component for all and a fully remote component for some, reality might be setting in that this will go on longer. This might be hard for some kids, and they are looking for boundaries and security. Come hear SRS parent and child psychiatrist Dr. Patrick Cleary discuss actions parents and guardians can take to help children adjust during this difficult time. Strathaven Middle School will be having its 6th grade back-to-school night on September 21st from 7 to 9 p.m. and its 7th and 8th grade back-to-school night on September 23rd, also from 7 to 9 p.m. We hope to see everyone there. At Strathaven High School, the new members of this year's Student Council collaborated on a 12-question survey for the high school student body to collect experiences, comments, and concerns about the first few weeks of Zoom school. While online school has been a transition that we are all still figuring out, these comments from the student body are incredibly important to consider moving forward. Overall, while we'd all like to be together in person, there are steps we can take to make this learning experience more enjoyable and productive for students while we have to be at home. Out of the 216 respondents to the survey, over 50% of students reported that there is too much homework, with 52% of students saying that they spend at least 2 or more hours each night doing homework on screens, which does not account for other types of homework such as textbook work. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being that screens had no effect on the student and 10 being that they felt completely Zoom fatigued at the end of the day, 67% of students marked a 7 or above. Students also had the opportunity to comment on the current high school schedule, with 42% of students responding that more time between classes would be helpful for them. Here are comments from an open-ended section where students could provide feedback on what would be helpful for them. The first comment is, it would be helpful if teachers reduce the amount of work they give on asynchronous Wednesdays. Some of them give me 1.5 hours of classwork and an additional 1 to 2 hours of homework. The day is supposed to be a break from screens, and I find myself spending 15 plus hours on a screen. The second comment is, it would be helpful if my teachers gave less homework on weekdays because I find it hard to stay on a computer after hours of Zoom each day. I wish they had organized weekly schedules so we could keep ourselves on track. The third comment is, it would be helpful if teachers did not give us so much asynchronous work and focused more on the synchronous times, because that is when we learn the most and have an opportunity to connect with them and one another. All work is homework for us, and seniors have college apps to consider as well. Other general comments that were frequently repeated include students wishing that teachers had more flexibility in terms of due dates and that they gave homework that didn't require more screen time. I'd be happy to discuss the results with any teachers or admin in more depth. Also, the Central League has made the decision to postpone fall sports and has made a commitment to stay in contact with PIAA to provide alternative student solutions for student athletes. On another note, thank you to all of the teachers and staff who have worked hard to get us off to a good start. It definitely hasn't been easy, and we appreciate it. That's it, and I look forward to a great year.
All right, thanks, Mira. And I'm so sorry for jumping right over your report on your first visit with us. So I will certainly remember that at the next meeting. But thank you for sharing all the student perspective. That's incredibly helpful. And I'm sure the administrative team will love to get that information as well. So with that, let me now turn things over to Dr. Palmer for her superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Grandy. It is hard to believe that we're already starting our third full week of school. And before I say anything else, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to our parents and guardians for partnering with our teachers. The back to school this year is unlike any one before it, and the response of our parents, guardian, and children has been extraordinary. Our back to school on August 31st was absolutely remarkable, and one that highlighted the true spirit of the Wallingford-Swarthmore community. I am so proud to be a small part of a very large moment in our community's history. With a start like this, I have every confidence that this will be an extraordinary year. Moving on to tonight's agenda. On tonight's agenda, we have 3 focus topics. The first one is the opening of school highlights, pretty much what worked well and what's an opportunity for improvement for us, what's still a work in progress. The second focus topic is a return to in-person learning and sharing out with you what is the timeline that we're considering for returning our students to school, and a look at what's a day in the life of our students at the elementary, middle, and high. And then our third focus topic this evening is the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association and Strathaven High School Athletics. And we have a guest with us. We have Miss Leanne Wenzel, who is a member of the board of PIAA, and she was very gracious with her time to come to talk to our community. And what I'd like this to be is an opportunity for all of us to get a better understanding of how does the Central Athletics League work, nestled within District 1, and how does all of that function in regard to PIAA guidelines? So if you're watching the meeting, please stay with us. We have a lot of valuable information to share tonight. And if you miss any part of our focus topic discussions, please know that they'll be available tomorrow on our website. Now I have a few public service announcements for everyone. So Mira had mentioned that we are already in the process of our back to school nights, with West already having theirs last Thursday, but a reminder for all: SRS back to school night on Tuesday, NPE on Wednesday, Strathaven High School on Thursday, and next Wednesday, the 23rd, for Strathaven Middle School. And all of the information that I'm sharing with you at this point is on the front page of our website. The second item to highlight is many of you have reached out to us asking, how can you help? Well, how you can help is to work with the Wallingford-Swarthmore Foundation. The foundation has created a COVID-19 relief fund to assist our district students and their families during this time. For even during the best of time, meeting the needs of your family can really be a challenge. And right now, the times are really unprecedented. So the foundation is partnering with the school district social workers, who's already very closely connected with our families. And if you are having any particular family needs related to childcare, food, household item, school supplies, please reach out to our social workers, and all of their contact information is on the website. If you don't need assistance but would like to assist, you can also find information on how you can donate. We know at this point that the foundation has already raised a considerable amount of money, so we will be able to help a number of families with mini grants. And the mini grants can be up to $275 for childcare and up to $100 for food, school supplies, or household items. The next item comes from Martha Q and our food service department, but we've had a change in our food service program this year. I know she wrote to you a number of times last year about the program that was in place, and it was the Summer Seamless Option, or SSO, as it was referred to in a number of the e-blasts that she sent to you. So we were waiting for that program to see if it would be continued at the end of the summer. We went into that program after we went out of school and stayed with it all summer. But the program ended on Thursday, August 27th. Therefore, when we started the school year the next week, we opened up with the National School Lunch Program, and we were able to provide breakfasts and lunches to some of our community members. And this week, we learned that the program has now been extended. The original summer program has been extended through December of 2020. So as a result, today, any children 18 years and under can receive free meals. It doesn't matter whether you are a student here or not. If you are 18 years and under, your family can pick up breakfast and lunch for you for the 5 school days, and there is no charge for the meals. When we return to school, there will not be a charge for meals either. So it's a really important piece for everyone to know. We will be offering the program, and you will not pay for anything. In terms of pickup, we are offering pickups on Mondays and Wednesdays, and there are actually 2 different times that are available for pickup. This is different than what we offered in the summer. We're offering pickups, the first one between 9 and 10:30 in the morning, and also during the day between 4 and 6. We want to make sure families have that opportunity to come when it's most convenient for them, whether it's the morning or it's the evening. And we have 3 pickup locations. It will be available at the Brookhaven Road entrance of Strathaven High School, at the front loop of Nether Providence Elementary, and at the main lot at SRS. So you can pick up whether it's at the high school, NPE, or SRS. You just can't make the rounds 3 times, but you can choose any of those locations. And one last piece about our National Lunch Program. If you think you may qualify for a free or reduced price breakfast and lunch, we still want you to apply. Fill out the application and let us process it. Because as they're saying, this program will go away at the end of December. This would allow you to have that safety net to be getting the reduced or the free lunch through the new program when it goes in place, or our traditional National School Lunch Program. So don't hesitate to send in those applications. We'll process them quickly so you'll be ready to go after this particular program will end. And then the last piece that I'd like to highlight, WSSD is celebrating National Arts and Education Week. It runs from September 13th through the 20th. We'd like you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram to see some of the highlights from our schools and all of the opportunities our students have to express themselves creatively and to develop their talents and their interests within the arts. And Dr. Grandy, that concludes my report tonight.
All right, thank you, Dr. Palmer. Certainly good news about the ability to extend the food program, because I know that was a big question mark, and certainly we're happy about those policy changes, and also happy the district has been able to implement that. We will move on to the focus topics. As we mentioned, there are 3 of them. I will ask Dr. Palmer to introduce our first.
And these are 3 considerable presentations for tonight. So I know I will ask Mr. Citroni how many people are watching, because we have been getting some record numbers of viewers. at our board meetings, and we've been trying to have more information as focus topics because we know individuals watch during the meeting, but we also will have individuals afterwards tell their neighbors, tell their friends, hey, did you see that presentation? You can go watch it. So we're trying to be as thorough with these presentations as possible. So the first presentation we have is our opening of school highlights, and our principals are going to take the lead during this presentation. So as not to extend our presentations this evening, our elementary principals will be tag teaming across the first and the second focus topics. So I know we will have Angela Tuck from SRS, Gabe Savage from WES, Joe Buchler from the middle school, and Greg Hilden from the high school. There are also all of the rest of us on board for questions that may be coming up, or we might be speaking during the second conversation. So as the board listens to us, if you have any questions for any of us, feel free at any time to jump in. But I believe the one who is going to start us off tonight is Angela Tuck. Angela, am I correct?
That is correct.
And the floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Tuck. I'm the principal of Swarthmore Rutledge School. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share our opening day experiences from the elementary level. Our teachers and staff were excited about reopening our school because we did not have closure at the end of the school term. Schools closed on March 13th with the hopes of reopening within a 2-week period and then sometime in the spring, but that never happened. So therefore we went into isolation, and just to keep our families and everyone safe and to learn more about the pandemic. Personal student items were left in cubbies and in desks. So therefore it left us not having the closure that we normally would have in June. So therefore, when school opened this year, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was a new beginning. It was extra special for all of our students, and SRS, WES, as well as NPE, all of our schools. And I have the opportunity to share some of the highlights from NPE, WES, and SRS. It felt like a ray of sunshine, although we were wearing masks and social distancing. It gave us an opportunity to say goodbye to our former students and to say hello to our new students and to our new families. And this also gave us an opportunity to meet our new teachers. Our teachers, they did an amazing job adapting to the virtual learning environment, building class communities, learning new technology, collaborating with colleagues, and communicating with parents. They spent a great deal of time in August preparing the bundles. The bundles consisted of workbooks, pencils, crayons, notebooks, packets, all kinds of activities and instructions for Seesaw as well as Google Classroom. Our students had the opportunity to also give a friendly wave or a social distance hello to their new teachers and to say goodbye to their former teachers as well as to welcome the new school year. The teachers were so excited to distribute the materials via the car line and have an opportunity to again say a friendly hello and to have a big smile underneath their mask. We're also planning another pickup in the near future regarding just some more activities to replenish some of the supplies that our families may need or have need of. Our technology team prepared devices. They distributed 882 iPads to our students in kindergarten through second grades. And they also distributed 893 Chromebooks to students in grades 3 through 5. Hotspots were also given to families that may have had trouble logging onto our system because of internet or wireless access concerns. Teachers were also given a guidebook to help them navigate this unprecedented situation. With Seesaw and with Google Classroom, strategies and ideas for online teaching, teachers became teachers of teachers because all of the teachers from all 3 buildings joined together to create lesson plans, as well as to share ideas and to give pointers and helpful hints regarding virtual teaching and also with technology. Within a 7-day period, our teachers pushed out 7,500 items on Seesaw. That was an incredible number. When I saw that number, we just could not believe how many activities were being presented to our schools. And then we also have our help desk. We like to thank AJ and Nora regarding just all of their support, and each building has a technology team that has given our students and our teachers the support that they needed in order to navigate the system and to find solutions to problems. Our teachers are enjoying the morning meetings as well as our students. This is part of our responsive classroom where they have the opportunity to greet students and to do icebreakers as well as getting to know you activities and to build a school community virtually, and hopes of hopefully returning in the near future and in person where we will be able to give each other high fives or warm smiles underneath our mask. The teachers have missed seeing the students, and that's something that all of the 3 buildings have indicated. The teachers, they miss giving students high fives, hugs, and warm smiles, but we're looking forward to coming back in person in the near future. And the bags that our students received, they were heartfelt and they were labors of love that all of our teachers and staff members have created in order to support our students. And although I know our special area classes are pretty large, however, but we received feedback from some of our parents indicating that the students really enjoyed having the opportunity to see their classmates from different buildings and to say hello to them on the Zoom. So this is an area that we are growing in, and I'm going to stop now because I can continue to go on and on and on about the highlights from all 3 buildings. So I just wanted to share with you just a little bit of some of the experiences that our teachers and families have shared with the principals. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tuck. Hello, my name is Gabe Savage. I am the principal of Wallingford Elementary School. And I want to build on some of the things that Dr. Tuck mentioned in areas that we know that we need to grow in, things that we know that we can do better in. One of those things right off the bat was our typical time in service is spent with our teachers, kind of talking about the year, developing what's going on, looking at specific projects and really bringing the staff in. And this year we just knew we had to prioritize the mentorship of our veteran teachers with the new teachers that came in. We had to prioritize putting those bundles together and making sure that students had the resources that they need. We needed to prioritize being able to interact, be able to see those students for the first time. It was a quick turnaround for our staff to come in, prep everything, get their technology ready, work together. And then last piece that I just really can't overscore enough is the fact that teachers collaborated like nothing I've ever seen. It is so vital when you are doing something new. I always say that the smartest person in the room is the room. It is the collective ability of our teachers to be able to work together and navigate this situation. And frankly, you need time to do that. And that's what we needed to give them. So that was one of the areas we knew that we were going to have to prioritize to maximize the impact that we were going to have for our students. The second area, and Dr. Tuck did allude to this, we're looking at our specials. Two of the things we appreciated is the wonderful feedback we get from our community, whether it's the encouragement or the constructive feedback. And one of the areas that we've been looking at is the size of our specials classes at the elementary level. That is one thing that we are investigating. We're looking at multiple options to see how we can fix that and adjust that as we move forward. I think one of the components that we're working through is supporting students across now almost four schools now, with the 3 schools and the online academy. So we're working through that, and we have some options that we're going to continue to look at. And the last one is touching on what Dr. Tuck about all those devices. When you have nearly 1,700 devices going out, and you have students on Google Classrooms, you have students on Seesaw, you're using Screencastify, you know that there are going to be some technological issues that occur. And again, we do want to say thank you to AJ and his team, Dr. Wheeler and her team. They've been phenomenal. But we know we've had people having to come in and swap out devices. We've had some problems with Zoom. You know, people can't get in or they've been knocked out. And for the amount of Zooms that we have and the amount of kids, it's a small amount, but we know it's something that we have to continue to get better at and we have to continue to work on. So those are three of the highlights that we're growing in and that we're trying to figure out. I think at this time, we'll probably move to the middle school.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Buchler, Assistant Principal of the Middle School. Mr. King sends his regrets for not being here tonight, but I'd like to review what's going on at the middle school since we started back. I can say with great confidence that the middle school has had a great opening. We've received a great amount of feedback from our parents, and it has been overwhelmingly positive. Most indicating that the teachers' lessons have been both interactive and engaging. We have been pleased with our overall student attendance. We are focusing our collective attention now on students that have had any issues to date so far with any attendance issues. Our distribution of essential materials for learning went out the last couple of weeks and has been fantastic, especially with our newest members of our family of middle school, that's our 6th grade students. Having the students be able to walk through and meet their teachers at a safe social distance was so important to us and certainly to them. We administered our first social and emotional learning survey to our students, getting their feelings about returning to school. We've had a very high return rate on that survey, and the school counselors and administrators are reviewing that data now. This past week, we administered our first SEL lesson to all students, and that went very well. The students and teachers truly hit the ground running 2 Mondays ago. And through great preparation, I feel there were very few problems. We did work through some minor tech issues. On our side, AJ Citroni, Nora Wheeler, Caitlin Locke have been so quick in responding to help parents, students, and teachers solve whatever tech problem that has arisen. There have been some issues with connectivity in some households, but even those seem to be working out. As we begin the 3rd week of our school year, we are beginning to hear about Zoom fatigue that may be setting in. So that is in the center of our discussions right now at the middle school. And as always, we can't thank our parents enough for all the feedback we've gotten. And as always, we welcome future feedback. Thank you. Greg?
Thanks, Joe. Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Hilton. I'm the principal at Strathaven High School. A lot of the information I have tonight is the same as what you've just heard from our other principals. We'll highlight just a few minor differences. In addition to our materials distribution for over 1,200 students, we also had our tech department issue Chromebooks to all of our rising 9th graders. So our goals this year are to obviously maintain a connection with our students. So the first week of school, we also sent a survey to our students, and we had a great response. We had 1,200 students respond to the survey. About 80% of them stated that they felt fine coming back to school. We had a few students who are confused or upset or nervous or tired. Tired was a big one. We had 418 students tired to come to school the first day, which doesn't surprise us at all. But we asked a follow-up question, one that I think is important to share the results with you all. So we asked our students if they felt connected with someone at the high school. And 80% of our students said they felt a connection. And this is a pretty good return rate on that question as well, given that 25% of our population is new to our building. So the only person our 9th graders would know right now is their counselor who traveled with them from the middle school. So I was very happy to see that 80%. We're going to do another activity in a few short weeks and survey the students and the teachers again if they know someone in the high school and they feel connected, and look and compare that data with our baseline from the first week of school. Another question we asked them was, did you need to speak with someone? Did you want to talk to someone about the transition back to school? So we had 64 students identify that they would like to speak with someone. And our counselors actually are in the process of reaching out to all those students, some of which may have already even been contacted this week. In addition to that information, we're happy as well with attendance. We had over 96% attendance rate during the first couple of weeks. But we've hit our glitches as well. We had some technical difficulties the first week with Google going out the first day. And we also had some issues as far as security with our tech in the beginning of the school year. But again, our tech department, AJ and Dr. Wheeler, worked hard to tighten up our access points and the procedures students go through to enter into our classrooms. I'm happy to say we've had very minimal issues over the last week in the tech department. So once again, we're excited to get the year going. It was a very odd beginning to the year. You know, you're standing out front of the building with no school buses and no children coming in. We very much miss them, and we can't wait to have them back in the building soon. So that's it from the high school. Thank you.
So Dr. Grandy, that's what we're presenting for the first focus topic. Are there any questions from the board?
I'll ask people to put their hand up in Zoom. I'll just start with a question. I think it came up, you know, at all grade levels, but, you know, with online education, there's always a concern about difficulty engaging some students and how to address when students aren't appearing in Zoom for classes. It sounds like that rate has been relatively low, but I'm curious to hear, you know, how we're strategizing to address that. I don't know if we want to start maybe with elementary and then maybe middle and high.
So one of the things that we're doing on the elementary level is we spoke really as an administrative team to come up with an attendance protocol. And we wanted to make sure we separated that from the actual engagement in the class, because there are two separate things. So we are going to treat it right now as if we were in the classroom. If a student showed up and they weren't engaging, what would you do? Well, you would reach out to that student. You would try to find out the background of what's going on at home. You would want to see, okay, is there anything that we can do? Sometimes in those situations, there's something else going on, especially in the circumstance that we're in, whether it be a parent work schedule where students are able to access or not access something, maybe their comfort level in their own home, how things look on the video. There's a lot of reasons why things could be going on like that. So on the elementary level, we're separating attendance from the engagement piece, and then we're addressing the engagement piece by continuing to build that relationship between that teacher and the parent and the student, and kind of working that way to bring the student in to make sure they're engaged.
Different considerations maybe to comment on at the middle and high school levels.
I would agree with Mr. Savage that we have the same approach. We have the separate attendance versus engagement discussion, which, as Gabe said, we talked about as an administrative team. But I will say what I've been impressed with. Now, we're lucky that our attendance rate is so high that when someone is not there, we can target them between the teacher, the school counselor, and the administrator. The phone call goes right home, because what's happening in Zoom now, someone may be in attendance for school, but by third period, well, where was she? Well, we get right to the phone call because we have a quick automatic system already in the middle school. It's been working out incredibly well. So getting kids engaged, but also tracking where are they at pretty much every minute of the day, because it's easy to do when they're in school, but when someone disappears out of Chinese, where did she go? Well, someone's on the phone with mom and dad pretty quickly. I've been pretty impressed.
Okay.
And that procedure is much the same at the high school. We also are following the district hierarchy of attendance interventions that we developed as a district team this summer, where we have a process in place for students who miss class. So teachers first identify that there's a concern. They attempt to contact the student via email. If that's not successful, they're emailing the parent and then making 2 phone call attempts to the parent. If those things are not successful, then the expectation is that they reach out to the school counselor and involve the school counselor. Right now, most of our, as I mentioned, our rate is very high for attending. Many of our issues have revolved more around students not being able to log on where they were on and they dropped off. But we've seen good results so far with attendance at the high school.
I see a hand up from Kelly.
Hi. So two things. One, I wanted to thank everyone that's on the screen and the many people who are not that made this possible. The back to school feedback and what you have accomplished for back to school has been phenomenal. There's been glitches and we've talked about, many of those, but the experience for the families and the kids has been truly blew me away. And I had high expectations going into this, so I can't thank you all enough. We've been talking a good bit about the student parent experience so far. I wondered if anybody could offer a few additional comments from the perspective of our teachers and what they think is going well or what they think might need to be improved. And perhaps that's for a different conversation, but if anybody can comment on that today, I'd love to hear that perspective as well.
I can jump in. I think what's going well is our students feel engaged. I think they feel very different than they felt in the spring. It feels more like school to them. I think an area of improvement is that we're trying to create a community online, which is a very different feel than it is in the classroom. So replicating that feel in an online environment as opposed to the classroom, I think has been difficult for our teachers and for our students. So we're going to be working hopefully to try to do some things that allow students to have a little bit more voice or to have a little more sense of community in the online environment.
I think for the elementary level, the teachers have done an exceptional job of creating community, and that's feedback I've heard from parents and teachers. I think being in this format for the first time, no one was really sure, would you be able to replicate it? But I think the focus on the social emotional concepts the first week really went a long way, and we're hearing positive feedback and about attendance. Students are engaged and attending. I think the frustrations or things to work on, Zoom, sometimes sound quality, just troubleshooting sound in the classroom. I think that right now is something that has improved, but obviously is a source of frustration. But also trying to instruct, using materials. I think learning how to use materials with students right now is what the teachers are kind of working through. But overall, I think the feedback has been very positive, and that's a direct result of the efforts of the teachers and the support of the parents.
Our teachers are working extremely hard. They're working from sun up to sundown. They are teaching one another. They are sharing different ideas or different strategies that they've worked on that they're really spending hours and hours just to prepare, because they're trying to replicate what we normally would do in the school day on Zoom or either on Seesaw, whether Google Classroom or either through this through the Zoom links. And they just want perfection. And I think that they are pushing themselves in order to succeed. And it has been a challenge for them because they expect for things, especially for our teachers that have been teaching for many years. This is something that is natural to them. However, this virtual platform is not natural for anyone. So it's going to take a lot of preparation. And that's what I see from teachers from all of our buildings. They're spending hours just trying to prepare because they want to be successful and they want our children to be successful. And because they're driven, that means that they're going to spend extra hours doing that. So I must admit.
I do like to say that, Kelly. We're very proud of our teachers. The amount of work they're doing, it is unbelievable. I can say anecdotally, I have and the administrators here, we get to pop in on our walkthroughs, and I get to pop into classrooms. And so I haven't spoken about teachers about this directly, but watching the engagement in the classroom, I'll take that as their opinion, their feeling, because I'm watching the kids happy, they're engaged, they're having fun. I'm going to take that as the teachers recognize that too. I know it's a lot of hard work, but I know that they feel the children are present with them, even though they're at their dining room tables, they are present with them. And I know they were nervous about that. They wanted to make sure that it's a valuable experience for the kids. And from my jumping into the classrooms, I can tell it is.
But again, thank you to all of you and to the teachers. My youngest told me, Mommy, this is so much better. I get to see all my friends and I can talk to them. And the older two aren't complaining at all. So that's a good thing, considering they're high school. So anyway, congratulations and really, really terrific job done at the start of the year.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, there's definitely hasn't been a year where kids have been more eager to go back to school than this one. Jen. Oh.
Thanks, Dave. I wanted to talk about the online rollout in a vacuum, if you will, to start. I sat next to my kids. I sat next to my 5th and 3rd graders every day in the spring as they muddled through it. I did not sit next to my kindergartner because there was just not enough of me. So she kind of did whatever she was going to do. But now I have actually been in 1st and 4th grade every day for about 2 weeks. I have my splitter headphones and I put them on, and I have heard firsthand a tremendous amount of instruction. I have witnessed all of the effort, and I sit there all day just to, not because anyone has to or should, but because I want to see exactly how it's unfolding. And I can say that, anyone that has seen what's being rolled out now in contrast to the spring, I don't see how anyone couldn't say it's working extremely well. I've been amazed at the lessons and the creativity and the stamina and the dedication that I've seen from my children's teachers firsthand, and they do it with a smile, a tremendous amount of patience, and a great attitude. I mean, it really has, it has amazed me to watch that. And I already felt really good about our teachers, but it really, really makes me again realize what a phenomenal group we have in this district. I've been able to partner with my kids' teachers and with my children in mind to help them get to where they need to be. I have been responded to in a prompt fashion every time I've reached out to someone. Seesaw, which I can't ever say I'll be a huge fan of, though, is working much better now than it was in the spring. It is versatile. I really think for the little kids, it's great that it gives that textbook option. Because little kids have different needs, obviously, than middle school kids and high school kids to develop things that the older children have already developed for the most part. And I just want to say that, the administration promised that it would be better. And while, better may not have been so difficult, they really did deliver. You really have delivered on that promise to make it a very comprehensive, and I think your words were, Dr. Citarelli-Jones, robust online experience. That is definitely what I have witnessed. Again, I'm not in every grade, and I'm sure that there would be reasons why some parents would have a different, would have issue with how I'm explaining my experience. But that has been my experience, and it's definitely been a good one. So I do want to thank Dr. Citarelli-Jones and the education committee that you put together. All the teachers that worked really hard. It is evident if a parent or a caregiver sits in those classrooms, it has been completely evident to me how much work they have put in. And the teachers are the heart and soul of this district. That I knew that before COVID, but it's again become clear. I mean, it's been really impressive. So after speaking about that in a vacuum, I mean, I also think that, and I'm hearing it echoed in the surveys that Ms. Patel talked about, I'm reading about it online, I'm hearing it from everyone who's spoken, the online platforms, which is no fault of any teacher. I have no criticisms for any teachers that I have witnessed working this hard because they're doing a phenomenal job. But the online platform is something that is just, it is impossible at this point for them to overcome. It is really difficult for the younger students to connect. I've seen students that actually are supposed to know each other online playing alongside each other in my neighborhood, and they don't know it's each other because they're just too little. So I think that's a challenge that our online education is facing. I don't know how you overcome it. But I think the only reason that I mention it, and again, other people have mentioned it, I do think it needs to be considered along with how well the instruction is going. Because unfortunately, especially for the little kids, but I also know up into high school that the online platform does present immense challenges for some of our students that just cannot be, some of them just cannot overcome those challenges. But to the extent that the instruction is really wonderful, thank you.
Thanks, Jen. I don't know if there's any, it doesn't sound like there's like a specific question to respond to about the platforms themselves, but I guess I would just jump in and say, as we move in to talk about reopening strategies, I think some of the issues that you brought up, Jen, about our youngest learners are highly relevant to thinking about our strategy toward getting kids back in buildings and where the highest priorities may be.
I think the last part that I would add is that I know that some families have asked for hotspots when they've had connectivity issues. I've heard through my neighborhood that there have been a lot of connectivity issues. I'm speaking primarily for the elementary school students. I would just hope that when we know that kids are dropping off midday, I'm wondering if there's a proactive, I know you said you're contacting them, but are you also, and I think Greg Hilden spoke about this, are you also letting them know that a hotspot could be provided if you determine that that is the problem? Because I think some families may not know that that's the issue and that they can ask for help with that.
Yeah, we do have additional hotspots, and we're asking people to email helpdesk@wssdgmail.org if they still need help.
Thanks.
And maybe another suggestion there may be that if, it would be the teachers who would probably be kind of the first ones to see patterns like that, where someone is having connectivity issues, and maybe making sure that the teachers sort of escalate that to some extent to the tech department, and there's some outreach to the families to see if that would be helpful. That might be a good idea. So I don't see any other hands, and I have a feeling like our next focus topic will really just build on this one. So I do want to take us to the second focus topic, and Dr. Palmer, do you want to introduce that?
I do. So where I had said in the last focus topic, I wanted our principals to take the lead. For this one, I'd actually like to start us off, and then I would like Gina Ross to follow me, and then Ferg Abbott to follow her, and then our principals to join in. So kind of a little in reverse this time. To give you an idea what we'd like to talk about, I'd like to focus on the timeline and what we're suggesting, my recommendation to the board about how we return our students. Gina to cover those health aspects, Ferg to cover environmental aspects within our building, and then our principals to focus on pretty much that student perspective of a day in the life within our buildings. So let me start us off and talk about our timeline. So Dr. Grandy had started our meeting tonight and gave some board comments about the types of things that we have to look at when we're considering bringing our students back to school. And they will depend on a number of factors, a couple of which are the community transmission rates. What are we looking at in terms of our test positivity? What are we looking in terms of our incident rates? So in case anybody does not realize, the Chester County Department of Health publishes information daily, but then they give us a weekly recap on Friday. And by the end of the day, perhaps between 5 and 6 on Friday, they release what our figures are. So we're monitoring that very closely of what it has been for the past 4 weeks. And to give you an idea, our most current information in terms of our positivity tests, it's at 4.34%. And if we are looking at what our incident rate is, our most recent incident rate is 48.5 incidents per 100,000. So when we're looking at those numbers, we would today be in the category that would be virtual and or hybrid. We all know that we're virtual and we're looking to go to hybrid. We also know that the next time that we're going to see the data will be on this Friday, and it will be a really important week because when we talk with the Chester County Department of Health, we know that their concern had been, what is that activity at Labor Day? And for the tests to start rolling in, meaning that people may have become infected during activities for Labor Day or on the weekend, they may be going for tests and they may be getting positivity. This week would be a really important week for us to see what kind of activity comes as a result of Labor Day. Let me be optimistic and hope that our numbers are looking good, meaning that our numbers are low generally and would still keep us in that category where we could go virtual and or hybrid. If that's the case and we're looking at our community, what's happening here, what's happening in the county, what's happening in our neighboring communities, and if everything looks okay, I would propose to the board that we consider the following timeline. So let's think tonight is Monday the 14th. We know we're going to get updated figures on Friday the 18th. Assuming the numbers are in the reasonable range and the activity of our neighbors and county is reasonable, I would propose that we consider a special board meeting next Monday, 1 week from today. At that time, the board could consider formalizing the timeline that I'm suggesting, telling our parents, what does this mean for their child's return to school? You also have to take action. Would we be moving from virtual to hybrid, just as you took action to move us from hybrid to virtual? Then I'm suggesting the following week, so meaning today is the 14th, proposed special board meeting next Monday. The following Monday is a holiday, but that Tuesday, I suggest we start our phased in return to in-person learning with our youngest learners, our K-2, coming back on Tuesday, the 29th. And for anybody who might be tuning in at any part when I say this, this is a recommendation. It's not a board action until the board takes action on it. So I wouldn't want somebody to stop immediately and say that, because I'm speaking it, somebody took action on it. This is a proposal. So that would be to have our youngest learners come in starting on September 29th, which is a Tuesday, because we know our youngest learners have the greatest difficulty with the online learning. Then I would move us to the next week, which is starting on October 5th. I would continue with our elementary school, grades 3 to 5, and also our students K-12 with our most complex needs or their most complex needs. We also know that they have the most difficulty accessing online, and I would bring them in as well the week of the 5th. Then it would be my hope to bring in all secondary students, middle and high school, on the week of the 12th. And when I say all students, this is assuming that it is the cohort model. We have cohort A and we have cohort B, that students would be coming in Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. With our 6-foot social distancing requirements, we can't bring all students into our classrooms at one time, but it would allow us to do a phased-in approach with K-2, followed by 3 to 5, and our students with most complex needs, and then our secondary students. So that's what I would recommend over a 3-week period, assuming that the statistics and everything in our community still says that this would be something that's reasonable for us to consider. Well, again, we will know more by Friday when we get the next week's statistics on what does the COVID numbers look like in our community. I'm going to actually ask Dave a question on this one. I'm going to hand off to Gina at this point, and I don't know if you have a preference that we take questions after we each speak or at the end of when we speak. And Dave, I'll defer to you on that one.
Sure. Why don't we get through everyone? Because I think that there are relevant pieces to reopening that it's worth everyone hearing about, because that may answer some questions that people have.
Then Gina, with that being said, I'm going to hand off to you.
Thank you, Dr. Palmer. Good evening. I wanted to be able to talk about the health and safety components. Much of this is a repeat or refresh from the topics that we've discussed when we address the health and safety plan. There are 4 areas that I'm going to speak about. The first is masking. As you recall, there have been many updates related to the masking requirements from Dr. Levine. As of the last update, it was that all staff and students were to wear masks during the day. Prior to coming online tonight, we received an update from the Chester County Health Department, and we'll be going in further to that. I have not seen any updates from Dr. Levine. So our anticipation is that staff and students would continue to be wearing masks throughout the day. As we know, and as you've seen in the guidance from the Chester County Health Department, they are recommending that we identify safe ways to allow students to have mask breaks. As that, we will be looking at times during the day when we can identify a safe procedure for that to occur. Additionally, there will be signage throughout the buildings reminding staff and students of that. We've had some great soft starts with our staff who are coming in, utilizing the masks, being wonderful role models for all of our students. The second area that I wanted to address was social distancing. As Dr. Palmer indicated, we are looking at the cohort model to be able to maintain that 6-foot distance within classrooms. Classrooms have been, in preparation for school to start, set up in that 6-foot model so that students can have that appropriate distance between them. Desks will be in rows, and those assignments and activities within the class will be monitored to ensure that we are promoting social distancing and safety. Additionally, non-essential visitors will be limited to the buildings. This is not anything new. We discussed this last time. There'll be safety protocols put in place to ensure that we are social distancing. The third area is hygiene. As Dr. Palmer and Ferg Abbott have discussed previously, the buildings are staffed with hand sanitizer, and staff and students will be able to utilize that along with hand washing protocols that will be completed during the day. Finally, there will be signs and decals on the floor to promote all of our safety precautions. They are currently in the process of arriving within the district and will be put in place soon. The last one that we briefly addressed, but we have a significant number of updates to, is the symptom monitoring. If you look further on the agenda for tonight, you can see that we're recommending approval of a symptom monitoring system. The system is a web-based system in which parents would receive an email that is a special link for their students. They would click that and then would answer the questions associated with the Chester County Health Department symptom monitoring checklist. Once that was completed, then the parent or staff member would receive either a all good certified to return to school or a notice that they needed to reach out to either our nursing department or to a private medical support person because there were symptoms or there were questions answered that were of concern. On the district side, we'll be able to monitor that in real time so that our nursing team can go out and support students and staff members who may have had difficulty completing it or may need assistance related to COVID symptoms. We anticipate that that system will be implemented and up and running with the start of our students returning. So you'll see that later on the board agenda. Overall, we are continuing the process that we started before we decided to go to hybrid. We were ready to start and we continue to be ready to start. And we're very excited to see students entering back into the building. They are my 4 areas. Ferg, would you like to pick up?
Thank you, Gina. And I'd like to review what has been presented at previous board meetings as well, what is currently done, and that which can be found in the district's health and safety plan with respect to air circulation, ventilation, providing additional spaces for students and staff to spread out, and our cleaning protocols. To begin with, we're fortunate in that 3 of our buildings are relatively new, with the other 2 having had renovations not that long ago, relatively speaking. That means our ventilation systems are functioning well. The district will be implementing a variety of strategies to improve air circulation, though. The first strategy will be to increase the amount of fresh air by opening windows and by adjusting the fresh air intake of our ventilation systems from 10% to 25%. Most of our systems are individually controlled through the computer, and we have that ability to adjust as needed. Next, redundant ventilation systems that have not been used fully in the past, or frankly have been off at times, will be operated throughout the day, beginning well before the start and well after the end of each day. All ventilation systems will run longer each day. For our central ventilation systems, we are changing the types of filters so that more airborne particles are captured. I'd like to point out that in each one of our buildings, we have individual units in classrooms, and then we also have central systems that work areas or our large individual spaces. So we have those 2 different controls, and these different filters will be put into our large central ventilation systems. Additionally, each area has been reviewed, and any area that we feel is in need of additional ventilation will receive a room HEPA filter. We are increasing the flexible space we have through the addition of large tents at each of our elementary schools. These tents may be used for multiple reasons, such as outdoor classes and use during inclement weather. We are not renting out additional spaces at vacant locations, though, because every time we add 1 classroom, we need to hire 1 teacher. So if you can imagine a full school on the hybrid model, adding enough classrooms to have all students present at once while socially distanced would require us to double our faculty, which is not possible from both financial and staffing perspectives. Now, that is not to say we haven't added staff already. The district has added 8 new teachers as of this date to accommodate the additional online academy classes, and switched some of our regular teachers over to the online academy as well. Unfortunately, though, the students enrolled in the online academy did not provide us the opportunity to bring back all the brick and mortar students for 5 days per week when we return this fall. Those class sizes will be averaging 21 or 22, and we just need to keep the 6-foot distance with that number of students in a classroom. So when a class size is 21 or 22, you divide that into cohorts, and you're talking about 10 or 11 students per class at a time. And if the entire class size is 21, we can't bring them all back at once because we just don't have the spacing necessary under the hybrid approach. Next, I'd like to talk about cleaning protocols. Through a combined effort between our contracted cleaning service company, Metz Environmental, and our own custodial staff, the buildings will be cleaned and disinfected daily, with a full disinfection between the cohorts, which would occur on Wednesday and after Friday classes. Throughout the day, our custodians will be disinfecting frequently touched surfaces. During the evenings and the time between those cohorts, Wednesday and after Friday, the cleaning staff will use electrostatic sprayers to apply the disinfectant. These sprayers allow us to fully disinfect an area in a relatively short time. Approved EPA disinfectants will be used in all areas. Lightly touching on transportation, we will use these electrostatic sprayers in each one of our buses after each run. And as Gina pointed out, all rooms will be equipped with disinfectant spray, wipes, and hand sanitizer for use throughout the day. And that concludes my part. I'll turn it over to maybe the elementary.
Thank you, Ferg. I'm just going to take a few minutes and go through the previously presented hybrid A/B cohort model for the elementary return. The first thing I'd like to say is, should we move into the cohort model, the staff, students, and community obviously are going to be extremely excited for the first sense of normalcy. Just seeing our students at the bundle pickup, if that's any indication, to see our youngest kids coming back, I can't put into words how excited our staff would be for that day. But I'd like to take a few minutes, just go through kind of the key elements of what a day would look like in the cohort model at the elementary level. As you know, students would be divided into two cohorts, A and B. Students in cohort A would receive instruction in person Monday and Tuesday, while cohort B students would be receiving asynchronous instruction. Also keep in mind there's the daily morning meeting, synchronous for all students to come back together. Wednesday is an asynchronous day for all, also including the daily morning meeting. So therefore, all 5 days, all of the students who are together right now would be back together in a morning meeting. Students who are in person, whether they're in the A cohort or the B cohort, their day would follow a typical daily instructional day and schedule. Students would receive instruction in ELA, mathematics, social studies, and science, as well as a rotation of special areas and their daily lunch and recess. Each of the elementary schools during the summertime planned for the return in a cohort. So many 8-foot tables have been ordered to provide students the appropriate social distancing in the cafeteria to provide safety for all. In the classroom, students will be spaced out according to all of the published physical distancing guidelines. And obviously this is, as Mr. Abbott mentioned, attainable due to the smaller class sizes of the cohort model. Now that we are currently employing the virtual schedule, the administration and teachers are currently reviewing the lessons learned from the new online format and are working collaboratively to analyze the hybrid schedule in terms of adjustments to our synchronous support offerings for those receiving asynchronous instruction at home. So that's just kind of an overview of what a day would look like. The in-person cohorts would be very similar to a daily schedule that we've had before. Students at home would have the daily synchronous morning meeting plus the asynchronous work sent out via the learning platform. Asynchronous Wednesday, teachers are preparing that asynchronous work to be pushed out. Again, could be a learning module, a video, WSSD teacher created video. But as I said, we've kind of learned some lessons from the current format. So we are looking at what synchronous could look like in the hybrid model across the week. But as I said in the beginning, we're incredibly excited that potentially we could be having our youngest learners coming back to us in a relatively short amount of time. So thank you.
We too, of course, echoing what Alice said, are excited about seeing our kids in school again. We do miss them. The joy of the middle school hybrid schedule is that it's quite simple, and we maximize the amount of time kids have with their teachers. Just like Mr. Heinley said, all precautions are taken in the cafeteria, classrooms, and all the safety. Every section of every class in every grade was went through to make sure the A, B cohorts work evenly with the sections, and they do. every child in the middle school will be assigned an A or a B cohort, even if they are on the online academy and they don't plan on setting foot in school at all. They still will go to an A or B cohort. It does mirror our day. Of course, now that we're in virtual, we have 41-minute classes. We go down to 34-minute classes, but they do see all 8 of their academic classes, including their lunchtime. Cohort A will, of course, be Monday and Tuesday. They will be done school at 1:15. They will leave school at 1:15. So their academic day is over. At that time, the B children of the B cohort, they're working on asynchronous work, of course. In the afternoon, what I like about our schedule is even on the cohort A schedule, A and B, the B kids do get to see their teachers. On Monday, the periods 1, 2, 3, and 4 get to see their teachers. Now they will be for 25 minutes, so the time is shorter, but they do get to see their teachers on Monday and Tuesday also. Wednesday, of course, as Mr. Heinley said, is all asynchronous. When we go to Thursday and Friday, we just flip. Periods 1 through 8 are seen by all the students and their teachers. They are done at 1:30, and the A kids now get to see their teachers for 25 minutes for 4 periods on Thursday and the other 4 on Friday. So we think we maximize the amount of time kids have for instructional minutes with their teachers, and they get to see their teachers more than just twice a week.
So at the high school, I would like to reiterate, what both Al and Joe both said. We are very excited to see our students as well. Our model looks a little bit different than both the middle and the elementary. And part of the reason for that is we're servicing 1,259 students in the high school. So to maintain a 6-foot distance between students both in the classroom and in common areas presents us with a unique challenge at the high school level. We are running an AB cohort with an online model as well. Our A cohort will meet in person on Mondays and Tuesdays in the morning, and will be provided a grab-and-go lunch if preferred on their way home. And then that A cohort will complete asynchronous work in the afternoon. During that afternoon time, our teachers will then deliver lesson via synchronous learning via Zoom to the B cohort who will not be present in school on Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, the entire school will be engaged in asynchronous work. On Thursday and Friday, the cohorts switch. So on Thursday and Friday, a student in cohort B would come to school in the morning, and the cohort A students would receive their instruction in the afternoon via Zoom. What that allows is any student who has chosen to be a part of the online academy, they would participate in the B cohort synchronous learning Monday and Tuesday, and the A cohort synchronous learning in the afternoon on Thursday and Friday. However, they will also receive the asynchronous lessons that the other cohorts would receive throughout the week. Part of our issue with the time, I've received a lot of questions about the decrease in the instructional time for in-person in school. And the issue is there's not a capacity at the high school to serve lunch to that number of students maintaining the 6-foot distance. That's our biggest hurdle. Second to that would be to provide an online appropriate option for students who choose to remain in the virtual.
Dr. Palmer, was that the last presentation?
That is the last one. So we're good for questions now.
Okay. So maybe, so where to start? I see some hands going up, but there's a lot of ground to cover. And so we may kind of hop around to different issues. I guess I'll just start by saying, just as a general comment, that I think, Dr. Palmer, your timeline makes a lot of sense. I think that, while the Chester County Health Department had originally set the date of October 12th, I think many feel like our rates have improved a lot since early August. At the same time, I think many understand that our highest priority learners in terms of who struggles the most with online education are our youngest kids. And so I think trying to accelerate that process to get K-2 back in school in a couple of weeks makes sense. And then moving on to 3 to 5. But I see some hands up for questions. Let me start with Chapin.
Thanks. That was very helpful to have all that overview in one place. Thank you so much, all of you. That was incredibly helpful. Really easy question for Ferg, and then maybe a different kind of question for the principals. But the Ferg question is, you said something about redundant ventilation systems will be operated, and I'm just not sure I know what you mean by redundant. Did you mean not previously used because not needed, or did I mishear the word that you said?
No, redundant and also not used in some cases. As I've come to learn in this job, these buildings are over-engineered. They're built for a greater capacity than what they actually hold. So some of our central systems have not been operating at full capacity because they didn't need to.
Oh,
but
okay.
because this is an airborne virus,
Yeah,
we now have the ability to ramp that up.
Okay, you said redundant, and it made me think of like old musty things that haven't been used. Like that didn't. And I guess I hadn't thought of this before, but I didn't hear anybody talking about testing the water. You know, I've seen all those articles about the water systems that have been sitting for so long. Is anybody on that? I didn't hear that.
We have a company that comes out monthly, but also prior to, well, first off, all water fountains are shut down. The cafeterias have been using the water throughout the entire summer, although in some of the buildings it's been off for a period of time. But we have procedures to put in place before we're going to use the water.
Okay, and do we have water for people if the fountains are shut down? Like, I don't know if kids if they fill water bottles and they last them all day, just because we don't have the backup with the fountains, I guess.
We're in the process of going around to each building, and the high school is first. And if they come in on time, we are scheduled to have 2 bottle fillers put in at the high school, which would give us a total of 3 at the high school. We only had 1 in the past. We do have bottle fillers at a couple of our elementaries. We have sinks in the classrooms, which suffice, but we are in a process of going through the district and putting in bottle fillers and bottle fillers don't have to be closed down as opposed to water fountains.
Great, thanks. And then the other question was just generally about the asynchronous, and probably this is something people are thinking about, but I just wanted to name it. Giving attention to having asynchronous also be screen-free, because asynchronous doesn't necessarily mean screen-free. So I don't know if anybody, if you've had any conversations amongst your staffs, the teachers, about that in particular. I'm guessing the answer is probably yes, but it might make people feel better to know that those conversations are happening. So.
Yeah, I can actually speak to that. In the first material pickup, there was kind of a lens given to that for some of the materials to be screen-free. So I don't think it will be much of a change when we move to the hybrid. The teachers are cognizant of Zoom fatigue and screen time in general. So should we go to the hybrid model, or when we go to the hybrid model, there will be attention given to that as well. And those conversations are being had.
Be nice to see people draw clouds and stuff.
All right, Marilyn?
Was Dr. Jones saying something?
Yeah, no, that's.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right, Dave. Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to jump in here for a minute. You know, I think our teachers, you know, over the summer, the idea of teaching all online, you know, it was different than the spring. We wanted it to be different than the spring. And so over the summer, we worked to try to improve things, to ensure that teachers had as much as they could have in order to get it ready, you know, sort of ripen up that mango. But at the end of the day, it was untested. And so as teachers came in and started collaborating and working together, they were able to really feed off one another and the energy with that. And I have no doubt that as we get into hybrid, the same is going to be true. So as teachers start to get more and more comfortable and more connected with students, both on-screen time and off-screen time when the students are in the building, I think they're going to be okay making more, I'll go back to that word robust, making more robust assignments that don't require a screen. I think in the beginning, everybody's so anxious to see their kids, and right now the screen is our modality for seeing our students. But once we're comfortable with that, I think our students will get to have many more experiences that don't just involve a screen, that gives them the opportunity to push away from that and do something that's tactile, do something that feels experiential rather than just through a screen. And I think it's just a matter of our teachers learning to, you know, that it's okay, and learning different techniques and sharing. I think that's why our time for in-service, our time for teacher collaboration is really, it's essential at this point. So I just wanted to add that comment in, and I appreciate the questions that you've been asking us.
All right, then we'll move to Marilyn. Sorry about that.
So I think I have 3 questions. The first one is a really easy one for Gina Ross. So all the students and staff will be wearing masks. Are the students supplying their own masks? Are we supplying masks for them?
So yes, students will be wearing masks unless they meet the exemption. Let me be clear on that. And then we have procedures in place for alternative PPE supports. Students and staff have the opportunity to either bring their own mask, or there will be masks available for them. You know, some students and staff members are really excited to showcase their specialty masks. Dr. Tuck is a fan of that. And I'm sure we have others who will be also, but we do also have masks within the district, and included in those are masks that have the clear mouth part to help support our students with social emotional needs or with a hearing impairment.
Okay, and so is somebody going to be taking a look at the student supplied masks to make sure that they are adequate?
How do you mean adequate?
As opposed to a bandana tied around your face?
So in terms of that, we don't necessarily have those procedures set. If you read the protocols that Dr. Levine set out in terms of that, they are very vague. So I think right now we're more focused on covering your nose and your mouth, but we would certainly speak directly with anyone who there were concerns about.
Okay, I would be concerned that the masks were actually stopping the transmission of viruses. So I hope we have some more information about that. So one question about shifting to the hybrid option, particularly for the middle school and the high school students. I know over the summer there was a tremendous amount of angst about the online education being not as good as in-person education, but and families had to choose on if they wanted to be part of the online academy or to go with the hybrid option. And I'm wondering if now that families have had the opportunity to test drive the online educational opportunities, will they be given a chance to maybe opt into the online academy?
I'm actually going to take that one, Dr. Huff. Talking about the second, actually, let me back up for a moment. We had originally asked all of our families if they wanted their children to be in the online academy or to come into the cohort. And then when we went to virtual only, I asked our elementary parents one more time to confirm to us that they wanted to choose the online academy. And we asked them to lock in, whether it was for a half a year or to let us know that they were going to do that for the whole year for whatever reason was right for them. Because we had very specific staffing that was associated with that choice. So we told the elementary families, you have another shot, tell us now, and we're going to lock in staffing. We never went back to the secondary parents because it was something that we could be a little bit more fluid at the middle school and the high school. We can't have kids hopping back and forth on a daily basis, but with a relatively little lead time, with perhaps a week lead time, we could move children back and forth. And we are definitely scheduling all kids to be cohort A or cohort B. So this will be a surprise to Greg and Joe, who have not heard this yet, but I'm envisioning that our principals will send out an e-blast to the middle school and to the high school saying, this is the proposed timeline that we would bring kids back. Let us ask you to reconsider your decision. Would you like your child to remain part of the online academy, go to the online academy, or participate in person as part of the cohort? So that gives us enough time to ask our secondary parents to re-up their choice or to choose differently. Okay. I had that in the back of my mind before, but I had not shared that with Greg or Joe until just now.
Well, thank you.
Surprise.
Thank you. That's helpful. And my last question is, I know that this reopening schedule is still just a proposal. It has not been approved yet, but I'm just imagining kind of the process that you get new information every Friday afternoon from Chester County. So will it be kind of on a weekly basis, making a decision on if we're still moving forward with the plan?
I'm going to speak and then I'm going to ask Dave to piggyback on me. I'm envisioning that our most critical date is going to be this Friday. And if that is the case, I think we're going to have a good feel for what that's going to be, so that if we do have the special board meeting next week, we can project another week going out to our parents. And that's also while the recommendation was only K2. That way we know what that would look like at our elementary school. We would limit the total amount of children in there. We would limit the total amount of children on our buses, that would give us that maximum protection in our building. It would be very different if our numbers come in totally high and off the charts. But my gut feeling was that we are going to be in that range. Depending on what they are, my thought is that we should be able to give parents a really strong feeling with, we think we're going to be okay, and 2 weeks out, this is what it looks like for secondary. Or if it's not the case, we could communicate to parents, we're going to need another week because we will have a board meeting on the 29th as well. And we could communicate with, we're not sure yet about the secondary, but we'll update you at the next board meeting. It's just one of those, I'm getting a gut feeling much more comfortable about the elementary. And after this Friday, maybe we'll be comfortable about the secondary too, or at least tell the parents we'll punt for one more week for the secondary.
Okay.
Dave,
So
I'm sorry, Dave, do you see it that way?
Yeah, and I'll just jump in and say, you know, that initial week being just K-2, we're talking about a dramatically lower number of students entering our buildings during that week than if we were trying to bring the full hybrid model back all at once. So we're talking about very modest numbers of students entering the buildings. We're also, again, talking about the students who I think stand a lot to gain from trying to get face-to-face as soon as possible. And I think if we just look at our absolute levels of where we are in terms of incidence and positivity, we're in a much better starting point right now than we were back in early August. And so I think even if rates ticked up slightly, we would still be in a pretty good spot in order to move forward. Obviously, if there's a big jump, then we have to revisit. And so again, I think it makes sense to, partly why we didn't plan on voting tonight, it definitely makes sense to see another week of data. And then of course, at any point in time, if there's something dramatic that happens, we always, and that'll be true for the whole year, we'll need to be prepared for, making quick transitions. But we also don't want to be making lots of transitions either. So we want to do this right.
Right. I guess that is, I am comfortable with the start. My question is the potential next wave that may come with the flu season in the fall. How are we going to make sure we respond to that rapidly? So that's just something for discussion next week.
Sure. Did you have another, was that your last
That was
one?
it.
Okay, let me go to Jerry.
Yes, that was my question. We're going to begin. We're going to have students come in, but I'm sure over the next week to few weeks, we'll have a COVID case. Are we clear how we're going to deal with that and what level of isolation we're going to follow and what the protocol is going to be?
Gina, do you want to take that
Yes.
one?
Yes. So yes, we are clear. Procedures are in place. Nurses' suites do have isolation rooms so that we are ready. PPE is in place for that. We have already had, some suspected cases, some positive cases where we've been in close contact with the Chester County Health Department. We've been very pleased with how responsive they've been and how supportive they've been in guiding us through. We feel very comfortable with the procedures that are in place in terms of responding both reactively and proactively to potential cases.
Thank you.
Jen?
So I wanted to go back towards the beginning of this presentation and ask Dr. Palmer. I only heard the second number, the 48% that you talked about. I did not hear your rate of positivity that you quoted. And I was concerned that maybe I was looking at the wrong thing. Could you go back and say that again?
The rate of positivity is 4.34%.
Okay, then I am looking at the right numbers. So when I go up to the recommendations, the guidance that Governor Wolf has given, which says we can go back in person with less than 5%, is it that our incidence rates are not where they should be for the and portion of that guidance?
That is correct. And when you have the numbers that don't match, you go into the high category and that becomes an or. So we would fall into the or with the incidence rate.
Not the moderate.
No, in the high, it would be greater than 40, but less than 80. So it jumps to the or. I know when we were reviewing this with Jean Kasner, she's like, look at the end. And then when you're in that other category, you hop to the ors.
Okay, but we're actually not far out of the moderate if I'm reading that right, correct?
You are correct.
All right. Okay. So based on that and based on the following presentations that I heard, if we were to get into the low, which doesn't seem impossible, are we unable to get kids back into our buildings 5 days a week?
I'm going to start this and then Ferg, I'm going to ask you to jump in. The issue for us is if we are still at the 6 foot social distancing or physical distancing of 6 feet, we cannot get all of our children back. I believe the best we can do is on average 4.5 feet if we bring everyone back. That's the one piece of all of the guidelines. We could mask, we could have the hygiene, we could do the symptom monitoring, but we can't do the physical distancing. Ferg, am I correct with those numbers?
Yeah, you are. And, if you take a look at a normal classroom on a normal day pre-COVID, from center point of the desk to center point of the desk, that is about 4.5 feet. So it is really, 4.5 feet puts us right about at a normal class with normal spacing, just like any other year.
Okay. And back to the question that Chapin had about the Zoom fatigue. I will say that especially for the younger kids, if it is going to stay on the asynchronous days as it is now, while there have been textbook assignments given out, which are appreciated by parents such as myself, they're still not screen-free days. because the only way to submit those assignments are through our screens. And it requires the child to go on and either fumble through it on their own, depending on the age and the savviness of the child, or the parent to go on and submit those assignments. In addition, the lessons, while it may be asynchronous, are delivered through screens for every child every grade that I'm aware of. So if they're going to be moving forward with learning during those asynchronous days, I do think there is still, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a decent amount of screen time that I am witnessing as it stands now. So I guess I'm wondering if there can either be more thought given to how, especially the elementary students, but our middle school students and our high school students are still young kids. I mean, they're still young, especially the middle school students. Can there be more thought given to how those asynchronous days work? Because there is still a significant amount of screen time for young learners that's happening.
To answer your question, Jennifer, yes, that is part of our discussions, like Greg said. I believe the struggle too is in our culture in 2020, that's what we were building to that anyway, you know, before COVID, that more screen time where textbooks have gone away and in classroom kids are on screen. So that was something we were dealing with anyway. So now you dump on this and everything has to be delivered, you know, so that was something we were struggling with before COVID about lessening screen time for all kids, but it is definitely part of our discussions, and I'm sure I'm speaking for Greg too, about during those times when they don't have to be on the screen, get them off the screen.
Yes, and I would also say that I hope for the follow-up for those 2 days a week that they get into the classroom, which, you know, who would have ever predicted that 2 days a week would look so good, right? But for those 2 days a week that they get into the classroom, I really hope that the emphasis really is on tactile, hands-on, not dangerous hands-on, with virus hands-on, but clean hands-on learning. Because I think another thing that parents are witnessing is for the first time in recent history, we're not saying get off the screens. Kids are begging us to get off the screens. They're begging us not to put them on the Zooms. They're begging us to end them. And it's not because they don't want to learn. These are kids that love to learn. These are kids that don't want to be on a platform that's designed for adults that we're now using for kids. And it's a sin. I mean, it's very difficult. I understand the predicament that we're in. I understand the balance. But I do also understand that screens weren't good for these kids prior to COVID, and COVID didn't make them good for them. So I think there are a lot of parents experiencing that and that would share that sentiment, a lot of parents and caregivers. So I do hope that inside the classroom, that will also be a huge focus because it's a major problem. The other thing I wanted to ask about is for Ms. Ross. You talked about this website that is on the agenda for approval tonight for symptom tracking. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes.
Okay. Is that to be used by families when their child has not felt well and they then want to evaluate whether the child should go back into the classroom? Or is that to be used by families prior to sending their children in the morning?
The guidance from the Department of Health and the Chester County Health Department is that districts must have some type of monitoring in place. So the online system is designed for every parent and every staff member to complete prior to the school day. So in a cohort model, if you are supposed to attend school that day, your parent should be completing it.
Okay.
Not just limited to when you're feeling well. It is for everyone, and it is a universal screener.
And so the guidelines from the health department require that family to complete that for that child to attend school that day. Is that correct?
That is the guidance. Yes.
That's the guidance. Okay. And just so that, I mean, don't necessarily have to go into all the exemptions, but you did talk about an exemption to PPE. I'm wondering if some kids that went into school may feel unsettled by not understanding exactly why that's happening with some of their fellow students. Is there a way we can either explain that, you know, obviously within the bounds of the law, or will they be wearing alternate types of PPE?
So if you're familiar with the governor's and Dr. Levine's mask update and mandate, there are specific areas, one of them being for individuals with a medical issue or with a disability and they're not able to utilize masks. So there are other PPE. Within the district, we have shields, we have plexiglass barriers that are, you know, for the desk, for standing in an aisle, things like that. I'm sure that we will be speaking with students if there are questions. I anticipate that there will be individuals who may have medical issues that will be documented and they'll have an alternative need. So there will be an understanding to all of that.
Okay, okay. And just so parents and caregivers can get a visual, will there be plexiglass? I don't remember hearing about it before, plexiglass dividers on the desks?
So not every student will have a plexiglass divider. However, if there are some students or staff members who are at a higher risk or part of the exemption from the mask mandate, then they would have access to these alternative PPEs. In terms of other plexiglass, Ferg might be able to address that.
And that's more from a staff perspective, in that any area such as a front desk, such as a library desk, such as maybe a nurse's area, or somebody who's at high risk, we've been working to create plexiglass dividers for those areas.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Kelly?
Yep, thank you. Following on to the symptom tracker, question, would our athletic departments be able to use the same, let's say we have an event, let's say when we return to competition at some point here, would we be able to use that same symptom tracker to check symptoms for our students who might be competing outside of normal school hours on a weekend?
I anticipate that that is a possibility. We have not specifically targeted that yet. I've been told that it can be used for other times outside of those guaranteed students and staff are due into the buildings. There are other methods that we might need to implement to be able to utilize that for maybe unexpected visitors at the building or for athletics.
Okay. And then I had a second, I'm not sure if this is a comment or a question, frankly, so we'll see how it comes out. Following on to the conversation about Zoom fatigue, which absolutely is real. We all know that, any of us that are still working from home. At the same time, when we think about the lessons learned thus far in these first 2 weeks, and how might a cohort model look when we come back. So we've talked about what that day in the life looks like, and we've talked about the fact that we want to build in any lessons that we've learned and make adjustments to that as we go. Looking at parent comments, I feel like we have this like inherent dichotomy of we feel the Zoom fatigue and we want to have less of it. And at the same time, I'm seeing a real ask from parents for more synchronous learning when we go into a cohort model, and those things are not compatible. So you can't address the Zoom fatigue and have more synchronous learning in a cohort model, unless somebody has an answer to how we might be able to do that. But I really feel like we've got these two different dynamics happening at the same time. And
Kelly, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw out a little bit of a comment on that. You know, Jen alluded to this before. I think the answer lies somewhere in what we do when students are in the building. So if we can decrease some of the screen time there and find a way, if necessary, to increase the synchronicity piece of it when kids are, quote unquote, asynchronous, that might be some of the solutions. So we can increase having more synchronicity during asynchronous days. It might just be to tune in for a core lesson piece, let's say 10 minutes of ELA, 10 minutes of math at the elementary. But for the times when the students, let's think specifically of our elementary students, when they are in the building for the full day, that our activities try to eliminate that screen. So it's almost flipping when the screen happens so that it is not happening as much when they are in the building. And Jen, when you mentioned that, I thought that's actually where I think the answer may lie. And I think that requires some further exploration.
Okay.
I do think that, Dr. Citarelli Jones, and I think that an extra piece of that can be for, for the students that just can't get to a special, or a parent that just is watching their child and they know, yes, I understand the value of art. Yes, I understand the value of PE and all of the other specials. This is requiring us all to think about how our kids learn in completely different ways. And I think working with the teachers and having those teachers continue to be open-minded about a partnership with the adults that are witnessing their child who may have a smiley face on that screen, but are breaking down at the breaks, which is happening, to say, to sort of honor that parental opinion, and to say, I know that, you should be going to these specials, but I understand that you're not, and that there won't be sort of this negative implication that arises because of that. I think that's another thing that we could think about, because I do agree with you, Kelly, that there is this push-pull, and they don't work together. And we do hear both of those things. But I will say that it is difficult also for the children and the parents witnessing those children who, again, it's some really wonderful students that just can't do this type of learning. So I think that partnership being really strong as we go forward as well is really crucial, and sort of trusting a parent when they say, this isn't going to work, because it's about the kids, right? We all have the kids' best interests in mind. And if we do that, I think that partnership can work well on top of making the most of those in-person days.
I agree with everything you said.
Kelly, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, the way I think about a lot of these conversations we're having, is that we will continue to learn a lot as we go. And, while I think families want stability, at the same time, I think we also need to embrace the idea of recognizing when things are working and when we recognize that there's challenges and we can make improvements, and being open to continue to iterate on this model, because everybody's doing this for the first time, and I think we will learn a lot as we go. I think we've already learned a lot about the fully virtual model in just a couple of weeks of implementing, and I'm sure the same will be true as we move to a hybrid. So, again, just being open to the idea of making modifications as we go, I think will be an important principle in all of this. I just had one, that's kind of a high level conversation about like the quality of education. I have a very specific question about environmental issues. Have we already, I think you said this already, but have we already moved as much furniture out of rooms to space kids out as much as possible for the return back?
I would actually like to defer to the principals, because that's been occurring in the building level. Now, keep in mind with the elementary, it's not really moving furniture out of the individual classrooms, because you got to have both sets of furniture in there, because the kids will be switching. And because the elementary will have certain belongings inside the desk. I know at the middle school, we've moved, they have moved just about all the furniture, if not all the furniture out, as well as the high school. We had been using the middle school cafeteria as a warehouse for all the additional furniture we had to buy, so that we could create the 6 foot distance. That was shipped out. Just about all of it was shipped out to the individual buildings last week. So I know the custodians are currently assembling that furniture, so they'll be ready for use by September 28th in the elementary buildings. Do any of the principals want to correct or add?
You are correct.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was agreeing with Ferg.
I would just add, at the high school, we've moved the furniture in the individual classrooms, but there are some large common areas where we've kept furniture. For example, in the library, under the cohort model, we have a few singleton classes. In other words, classes that are only offered once in the schedule. and where we didn't have room to make scheduling adjustments for students to maintain only 15 students in a class, those classes will take place in a larger area where we can still spread students out to maintain the 6 foot. So other than those areas, all the furniture has been moved out. I will also say that it's been, a lot of it's stored in our locker room area because we don't anticipate using those anytime soon. So if we were looking forward 6, 8 months or whenever, if we were ever to return to a full in-person, we would need some time to transition all that material back into the classrooms.
Great, thank you. And Ferg, I think you alluded to it with respect to ventilation plans. In general, in most classrooms, are we able to get at least some windows open in the classrooms?
Yeah, just about all our classrooms have windows that open. They aren't windows that you can open fully, because those days came to an end a while ago, and insurance companies don't want you to. But the reality is you can't bring too much fresh air into a system that has a ventilation system or an air conditioning, where it will shut down, the humidity will shut down the air conditioning system. So just about all classrooms do have the ventilation, windows that open. The classrooms that haven't, as I indicated earlier, I've gone through those classrooms with our HVAC technician to take a look at the ventilation in there. We also purchased a tool that allows us to measure cubic feet per minute to make sure that we are turning the classrooms over or any area over as per recommendations.
Great, thank you. So I don't think I see any other hands. I'll just pause for a moment to see if any other board members have a question. Okay. So just to let board members know, I do intend to schedule a special board meeting for a week from today based on Dr. Palmer's recommendations. So we will plan to meet on next Monday, which I believe is September 21st, if I'm correct, at the usual time at 7 p.m. And we'll take up at that time the item of this phased reopening plan. So let me turn things back to Dr. Palmer. We have one more focus topic for the evening, and I'll let her introduce that.
We do have one more, and I have to say, I am going to owe Leanne Wenzel for agreeing to come to our presentation this evening. Let me give you just a piece of background as to why I asked for this item to be on the agenda. We have been having a tremendous amount of conversation relative to our ability to have sports, our desire to have sports. And I know that we are part of the Central Athletic League, which is part of District 1, and we are governed by PIAA bylaws. But I can't, with certainty, tell everyone on the call or in our community what that means with all of the nuances associated with the league, the district, and PIAA. So I had the opportunity to work with Leanne as a colleague from another school district. She is the superintendent of Ridley as well. So we meet regularly. But in this particular instance, she is before us because she sits on the board of PIAA. PIAA has a number of board members, and the part that she represents is she is a member of the professional association that we both belong to, the Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators, and she is the PASA representative to PIAA. For instance, PSBA also has a representative to PIAA as well. There are a whole group of individuals, and Leanne is the one who will update us. So I had called her and asked her to explain those nuances with District 1, Central League. How are the votes taken? What does the bylaws mean to us? When can we play sports? What's going to happen? And I asked her, could there be anybody who would come out and be able to talk to our community, to be able to educate us all as to what those intricacies are. And she was very generous with her time and said that she would do it. So she is here in that official capacity tonight to educate us on Central League, District 1, and PIAA. And let me preface the conversation with the superintendents have been in touch with PIAA. We know PIAA has a work session scheduled for this week on Wednesday, the 16th. And we also know the PIAA board has a board meeting scheduled for next week on Wednesday, the 23rd. At that time, we are anticipating that the PIAA will sanction, authorize, develop an alternative sports schedule that can be presented to the Central League. So we are very hopeful to get more communication, but I thought I'm not the best one to communicate it. Also on this call, you will see Pat Clancy, who is our athletic director. I've asked him to join the call, and Greg Hilden is on there. Both Pat and Greg are representatives to the Central Athletic League. So I thought the board should kind of know what all of this is very specifically. And since I can't speak articulately about it, I am indebted to Leanne to educate all of us. So Leanne, the screen is yours now.
Well, thank you, Dr. Palmer. It's been enlightening for me to be able to sit through and hear, your triumphs as you've moved through the opening of school, and hopefully we can respond in kind at some future date. I do sit in one of the 32 board member seats for the PIAA board, representing our state superintendents association. The PIAA is actually divided into 12 geographic regions. Ridley School District, as well as the Wallingford-Swarthmore School District, actually sit within District 1, one of those 12 districts within the PIAA. And sometimes that gets a little bit confusing when we refer to districts. Are you talking school districts? Or are you talking PIAA districts? But District 1 references the school districts in Southeast PA, as well as we kind of branch up a little bit as well. So when you think about how those structures fit together, what we look at is all 12 districts have representative seats on the board, depending upon the number of school district members within their particular district. And then within each district, there are structures as well. So within District 1, we have a chairman, an assistant chairman or vice chairman, as well as an executive director and an assistant executive director to manage operations. The Central League fits into District 1 as one of the representative groups that organizes school districts in the District 1. Every district in the state, every PIAA district in the state has a little different structure to it based upon their geographic region, the number of school districts. So for example, in Western Pennsylvania, District 7 falls within what's referred to as the WPIAL or WPIAL. That actually represents 10 counties. So not just District 7, but it also picks up some school districts that are outside the District 7 PIAA membership. And they actually have sections. The teams are organized by classification or size and geographic location. So that organization is different on the other side of the state, how they organize competition within their member schools. District 1 traditionally has these different leagues. So in Delaware County, the Central League is represented. We also have schools that fall into the Chestmont League and the Del Valle League. So there are different leagues, and the leagues don't necessarily always conform to PIAA classification or size, but the leagues are pretty much generally have always revolved around geographic location to determine who belongs to what league and some other historical background that has developed over time with these leagues. So the Central League's responsibility is to primarily design schedules and make sure that the rules of the PIAA are being implemented properly as we roll into what the PIAA's responsibilities are. The PIAA believes that a system that best serves a student athlete is to emphasize the amateur, educational, and character building aspects of high school athletics, and recognizes that athletics is not the driving force. The students are in school primarily to obtain an education, and that's a primary piece of the PIAA. So with that in mind, the PIAA has created bylaws and regulations that every school must abide by. And part of that deals with the scheduling dates for sports seasons and making sure that the sports medicine advisory committee's guidance is being implemented and followed appropriately for each of those sports seasons. The PIAA has 4 major areas to focus on. 1 is eligibility of students. 2 is the rules, how they're implementing the rules for every sport, training and registering officials, as well as then designing the championships. So those are the 4 primary focus areas of the PIAA as their responsibility. When it comes to the interaction between the Central League and District 1 and the PIAA, the Central League is an organization that is pretty much primarily for the principals and the athletic directors to consult and communicate and act on behalf of their district. As a member of the PIAA, the boards, and none of us were really here when we joined the PIAA, but the application to be a member in the PIAA commits the district to have the principal as the responsible individual to the PIAA on all matters pertaining to interscholastic athletic relations within the school. That is the principal's responsibility, and hence the Central League isn't just all the athletic directors, it actually has the principal component with it as well. So those are pretty much the structures and how they each fit together in making the system kind of work and move forward. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
I have a question, and again, I don't know if you can answer this, but I'm trying to understand for our, we'll just take fall sports as an example. Right now we don't have the Central League competing. And if an individual school decides to resume a particular sport or set of sports and wants to compete against another school, like one of the things that's been suggested in public health recommendations is to find some schools to compete against. How does that relate to the Central League, PIAA? Is a district allowed to do that? Or I guess if you do that, does that cause any negative consequences for future opportunities in the league or PIAA?
So there are 2 things in play. One is it's the league's responsibility for scheduling purposes. That is the league's responsibility because District 1 doesn't manage scheduling, the actual individual leagues do. People may be well aware of Major League Baseball, the NBA, the idea of creating a bubble in which you're trying to restrict the contact. And that was the approach that the Central League was trying to mimic. So if you choose to go outside of the Central League bubble, you now put yourself at risk in that you're most likely traveling outside of Delaware County. So that's one issue that goes with that. The other commitment is the Central League. Part of being part of the Central League is that commitment to play Central League schools. So if you're choosing to go outside of the league, then you're requesting to actually leave the Central League, and the Central League would have to decide how and when to sanction individual members.
And so in a situation where if the Central League wasn't having a season right now, and you wanted to set up a competition with another Central League school, what are the implications of that in terms of the, participation in the league, future eligibility, all those kinds of issues?
So essentially what you're asking to have happen is if Central League schools want to play Central League schools, then the Central League is allowing for competition. If you're not going outside the Central League. The issue comes in if you're opting to go outside the Central League to seek your competition.
And so if even though the league itself wasn't organizing a season, would you're still, like, if you contact one other school and say, hey, we want to play you, like, we're resuming practices, we want to set up, with these two schools, some competitions, like, that would be within the Central League and you wouldn't be departing the league in any way.
You're not stepping outside the bubble.
Okay.
Every sport has specific rules in terms of practice and competition. So if you choose to engage your season, the number one rule, and the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee will not back off of this, you must have 15 days of practice prior to the start of your competition. So that's one aspect that has no wiggle room. You have to have the 15 days. But once you start your competition, you have a limited number of competition eligible times that you can play. So that's within the bylaws and the regulations of the PIAA that the league must uphold. So for example, football has a limit of 10 competitions that can be played during a regular season. With that limit, in order for you to qualify for postseason play, you have to play at least 50% of those games to be eligible for football. So that's 5 for football. Now, there is in the bylaws and the regulations, there is the opportunity for a waiver that in the case of the pandemic, let's say we only get 4 games in, we don't get that 5th game in. Does a school want to apply for the waiver in order to be eligible for postseason? So those are other things that are in consideration. So right now, the Central League has postponed to act upon the alternative schedule that the PIAA is permitting. So as the PIAA had to know how many schools, and it seems it was about 15% of the schools across the state have opted for an alternative schedule. And once they knew that, then they have to, as a board, we have to have a work session to sit down and say, okay, we've been advised, these are all the bylaws and all the regulations that we have to consider in order to make a plan to move forward with an alternative opportunity. So those are the next 2 meetings that Dr. Palmer pointed out, the work session, as well as then the general board meeting.
Okay, and then I promise I'll hand questions over to someone else in a moment. So, and I may just be like not thinking about the Central League in the right way, but so let's say that PIAA comes out with these alternative accommodations to compete, and the Central League decided we want to have our fall seasons sometime after the new year. But there were Central League schools who decided we're going to set up competitions with each other right now. In that situation, can you do that and you just sit out the other season that the Central League is organizing?
It's going to get a little bit tricky in terms of the Central League's decision about what they're going to sanction in terms of that schedule. Because once you start your competition, you may lose the opportunity. Now you can start practice, but if you don't compete, you may lose the opportunity to take part in an alternative because you've started competition. Because that has come up in our board discussions as we were looking at these possible ideas, that what happens if someone starts competition and somebody tests positive and we have to shut the team down? Can then we move to the alternative? And there are bylaws that have to be reviewed, and those decisions have to be made. Where is that line? Can they play one game? Do they have, if they play less than 50%, because there's a 50% rule? Those are the bylaws that the PIAA has to look at.
Okay. And I must say, thank you so much for attending our meeting. I'm sure you have many things to do in your own school district right now, so we really appreciate it. But I see Kelly's hand up.
I am aware that I'm sorry. First of all, thank you for being here tonight. And I'm going to put you on the spot because I think right before we all joined meetings tonight, Chester County changed and released some guidelines. And I wondered if you'd had a chance to look at that at all yet and what that might mean for us, because yet another wrinkle in all of this.
My first glance at it, because you're right, it did come out like right before this meeting. My first glance, pretty much, I can sum it up by saying they're leaving it all on the districts to make a decision. They're fully supporting the local authority and will continue to do so. I didn't dig deeper, but that's pretty much what I saw.
And that feels like a pretty significant change from what they had said previously.
They're still advocating for the January 1st to follow the DE and Department of Health recommendation. However, it doesn't mean that they are opposed to districts exercising their right to make that decision.
Okay.
I will note that any competition, and this came from legal at PIAA, every district has received the liability posters, the COVID warning posters that must be in place at every competition site to alert spectators of the risk of participating. So those did go out to every district, as well as a copy of a liability waiver should a district want to use it. That information did go out from the PIAA as well.
Anything else, Kelly? Okay. Jerry. Jerry, you're muted.
I'm going to try to interpret what I heard and see if I heard things right. Fundamentally, number one, the PIAA has to allow an alternative schedule. Number two, the school district has to agree to practice for the given period of time. And then the sense I got, if we're going to compete, the Central League needs to decide to establish some kind of a competition schedule. And then if those three things happens, then we choose to compete, then we can compete. Does that sound about right?
That sounds pretty concise and pretty direct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jerry, for summarizing. Appreciate that. Jen. Jen, you're muted.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, thanks a lot for being here. Am I correct in understanding that the Central League is actually it's underneath the umbrella of the PIAA then?
So they are charged with implementing the rules, the bylaws and the regulations of the PIAA, as well as creating the scheduling opportunities for the PIAA, yes, to implement the PIAA guidance.
Okay, and when you were going through the principles of PIAA and you said that education is first, are you talking about the academics in education?
The academics, that is within the statement about the purpose of the organization. While they do believe that, the participation in athletics builds character and interpersonal skills that are difficult in other settings, it's still school's primary purpose is the academics.
So do you think the fact, I've recently learned a lot about sports. It's not that I didn't know anything about sports before, but I was not an athlete myself. So I've been asking a lot of questions about this. And I learned that, and you probably have the exact numbers, that the PIAA actually regulates, is it 582 different, is it districts within Pennsylvania?
So with the PIAA actually oversees not only high schools, but junior highs or middle schools. So there are over 1,400 individual schools. They are public, private, parochial, and charter schools within the PIAA.
Okay. So of those, I guess I was told that it's 580.
That's about half. That's probably the number that are the number of actual high schools that participate in the PIAA.
Okay, probably public high schools, would you say?
Yeah.
Come in for a second, please. I believe that number is the number of football teams that participate in the PIAA. I believe it's close to 700 high schools that are members for basketball and sports that require fewer members.
Okay, and that of those, only 80 are not, I guess in that case would be football, but of those, only 80 across the entire state of Pennsylvania, ours is one of them, are not playing. Is that correct?
I haven't.
I mean, approximately, the numbers don't have to be, but I mean that there's that, that sort of rough ratio. Does that sound about right to you?
The only thing I had heard was that it was about 15% of the member schools were not participating. That's the only thing I've heard. I haven't seen any of the data.
Okay, and that's because they don't have the opportunity, in the sense that in our case, the Central League has decided to push the sports back. So it's not that they don't, am I understanding correctly?
Now, there are school districts in different counties all across the state that have opted not to participate. So Elk County, I know of, one in Washington County, like Bethlehem, going north, there have been Norristown, Downingtown. There are districts all across the state that have opted not to participate in athletics.
But in our case, it's not necessarily that, and I guess in those cases that we've opted not to, it's that we don't have that avenue the way it stands right now. Is that correct?
I'm not, well, like the Del Val, like in terms of the league.
Yes.
So the Del Val League, the Chestmont League, and the Central League have all postponed opportunity for fall participation until an alternative is presented.
Okay. So I guess what was so surprising to me, and maybe it shouldn't have been, was that I didn't realize how many people, kids, high school kids, junior high kids, are actually playing sports across the entire state of Pennsylvania almost every day of the week, a variety of sports, because even though we're not playing, there's tons and tons of club sports that are playing. I'm imagining that the PIAA is fully aware of that.
Fully aware, and that was a concern. And I'll be very honest, for my district, all my high school student outbreaks have been associated with those community-based sports.
Well, I mean, that may be in Ridley, and
yeah, I'm saying in my case, that's the case.
Okay, but I know that they're playing as far out as in Western Pennsylvania, where I'm not sure how their numbers compare to ours, and that they have not seen, at least not yet, those sort of tumultuous starts.
Well, Mount Lebanon lost their first 2 games because of an outbreak. Elizabeth Forward lost their 2 football games because of an outbreak.
Like they were canceled?
They were canceled because they had an outbreak, yes. And they're, we're hearing the football ones because those tend to be the ones that newspapers report on. We don't know about the soccer teams that have shut down. I just know that during the course of the summer, from my colleagues across the state, we did hear of other teams that have had to stop operations because of outbreaks.
Okay, but I mean, across the state, hearing of a few teams doesn't sound like a whole lot. I mean, I guess what was really startling to me, and I know that you're not individually responsible for this, so I don't want you to feel as though I'm cornering you in any way, but I just have discovered all this in recent, I guess within the past week, and it was just so surprising to me how many athletic teams are playing all the time, and they've been playing safely. So I guess I'm wondering, with the recent lifting of this parameter with the of this guideline with the Chester County Health Department, do we foresee that bumping anything up?
Well, I don't think it was lifted. The first line, it clearly says they're still advocating for the July 1st, but they're allowing school districts to, endorsing that school districts have always had the opportunity to make their own decision. So they're still advocating for January 1st, but they have added to the fact that schools can have the choice to continue their operations should they choose to do that, with the caveat of the strict health and safety plan and the other guidance that's in place.
And I guess also I'm wondering, and I think this is the last of my questions for other people who have their hand up. I'm wondering, especially, so PIAA is also responsible for the private schools that are continuing. You said private and Catholic schools.
If they are members of the PIAA. So for example, some of the Catholic schools participate. Roman Catholic's a big basketball school. They participate in the PIAA. But a school like Episcopal chooses not to participate in the PIAA.
Okay, so it is not consistent, obviously, certainly not across the state, that's for sure, and even across the region in some ways. Am I right about that?
Yeah,
I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes, the PIAA is not the governing body over every team in the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay, and so also lastly, do you think the Central League would be rethinking, just as schools have had to rethink all of education, do you think they'll be rethinking what you talked about with the sanctions and such if schools that are within that Central League do decide to play one another?
I think what we're looking for is what guidance the PIAA is going to give us, because it's not just sanctions from the Central League, it's also PIAA sanctions, because there are rules about what you can do and when you can do it. So we want to make sure that everybody, not only that everyone is able to compete in a safe environment, but they're also competing within the guidance and the rules. So when you look at, for example, some of those rules are about when a sports season can start, when it can end, that you have to have 15 days of practice prior to the first competition, that you have to compete in 50% of your games prior to be eligible for postseason. The other thing is the guidance on postseason from PIAA we're looking at as well to see if it's really about making sure kids have the opportunity to play as much as possible, what role does postseason have with it? Do we say, well, if you're not eligible for postseason, but you can play for the entire window and get 8 games in versus just 5, do we allow for that? So those are the things that the PIAA has to take a look at.
Okay, and especially, I suppose, considering the fact that there are so many sports going on, they're pay to play sports for the most part right now, although football does not have that opportunity, which is why I think some of the conversation has surrounded that, because I've also learned that almost all the other sports have a club opportunity, but football does not because of the regulations. So I think that's another thing that adds to that conversation, that they don't have that opportunity. And then there's, of course, a huge equity piece for the kids that cannot pay to play.
Absolutely. Equity has been a top figure when you have all the schools in District 8, which is the city of Pittsburgh, and the schools in District 12, which are the Philadelphia Public and Catholic School Leagues, not participating. This is an equity issue, and even an equity issue beyond football. It's, the parents that can't afford to have their child, go out and participate in a travel volleyball team. This is a major equity issue.
It is. It really is. Okay. Thank you so much for your patience with me. Thanks.
Chapin.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure I understand Jerry's summary with that last bit of information. So this 15% that Jen just said, only 15% of schools are opting out. Does that mean choosing to follow the PIAA and Central League, 15% not going rogue, right? Is that the 15% that we're talking about? Because you can always go rogue. If you go rogue, though, you're subject to these sanctions and, the participation isn't official anymore.
So you have two options under the PIAA right now. You have the standard fall sports schedule, which officially started August 24th. That's the 85%. The 15% are waiting for the alternative guidelines from the PIAA. And then you have that other group that if you want to go rogue, then yes, then you're going to be subject to sanctions, whether there's Central League sanctions or PIAA sanctions.
Okay. Okay, I think that clarifies. Thanks.
Jerry?
My assumption is that the 15% that chose not to participate in the regular season was at least partly due to the positivity rate and the general rate of the virus in their region. And I'm assuming that is why that District 1 and the leagues in District 1 chose, at least for now, not to participate in the regular season. Is that correct?
I think that's a pretty safe, when you look geographically at what districts chose to pursue, the community transmission rate heavily weighed on those on those decisions. So when you look at City of Philadelphia, the City of Pittsburgh, the Southeast region, even up through the Northeast region, that did impact greatly the decision that was made to look at the alternative.
And now that we chose not to participate in the regular season, unless the PIAA gives us some dispensation for an alternate, we're kind of stuck. So hopefully they'll consider, right?
And it's still not too late to participate in the regular season. You would not have as many opportunities for kids to play, but you still could compete in the regular season. So that option is not completely off the table at this point in time.
Only if the other schools in your district also choose, right? I mean, we just can't do that ourselves. That's a collective action issue.
To play again. Yes.
I think that's an important piece too.
Yeah, that if the community transmission rate is such that schools feel comfortable then in engaging and creating a schedule, then you could pick up your season with your 15 days for practice going into your competition.
So I'm going to circle back to my questions because that just confused me slightly. So if you were to essentially decide soon that you were actually going to enter the season that had already started, the fact that the Central League hadn't created a season of competition in our district, if you went out and said we were doing that and found, again, a few other schools who were interested in that arrangement, could the Central League still come back and say, no?
The Central League would have to agree as a league to set up an in-season schedule. That would be the alternative regular season as opposed to an alternative schedule.
Okay, so all roads do lead back to the Central League.
Because they have to do the scheduling, correct.
Okay. Kelly?
Just to one or 2 points of clarification then. So if you want it to be a regular schedule that allows you to go into postseason competition, playoffs or whatever, right now we need the league to help. We would need the league collectively to help make that happen. Well, alternatively, you could play in a bubble that you could set up with a couple schools, but it's not the sanctioned season then.
Yeah, so the other like if you're just looking at postseason, there are a lot of unknown variables there. So postseason requires you have to qualify for postseason. So how many games did you win? How many quality points versus your competition? So, and you have to play in at least 50% of your games to get there. So, and it remains to be seen how the PIAA structures the postseason to begin with. Does the postseason still consist of 16 teams? Do they reduce it to 8 teams? None of those decisions have been made yet. So basing your decision just on postseason may not get the kids the kind of play you would hope they would get.
Okay. One final question for me. If we were to want the students to participate in regular season, given the 15 days of practice that has to precede it, that's a decision that would have to be made very quickly to at least begin the practice, correct?
Correct. So, we were looking at dates today. So if you would start practice or start your official practice or declare that you're officially practicing, and Pat, I assume you're still on the call. If Pat would say that, sports practice are going to officially start on tomorrow, on September 15th, you would have adequate time to get your 15 days in. And this, I'm using football as an example, to get 5 games in if you started tomorrow. Now, you could also start your 15 days of practice, and it could come out that the PIAA alternative is a more attractive schedule to guarantee kids playing time, that the Central League says, hey, yeah, we really want to do this. We want to set it up. So you could still, at that point in time, you would still be eligible because you got your 5 games in, that's 50% you could play. Or I'm sorry, you could get 4 games in because you play 1 game a week. And you would request a waiver because that's built within the regulations that you couldn't complete 50% of the games because of the pandemic. So you would still be eligible to request the waiver to be eligible for postseason. Now, one of the other things that the PIAA could talk about is if you don't qualify for postseason, you can have those extra weeks to actually play games when playoffs are going on so that your children get more opportunities to play. So the Central League, if the schools in the Central League that don't qualify for a postseason game, they could continue to play. There are options out there that we don't have answers to yet until we go through the process with the PIAA board.
Okay. Thank you.
And I see Dr. Palmer has her hand up. Maybe she's trying to rescue you from us, but
I wish I were. I actually have a question that came to mind as Leanne was explaining that. Leanne, do all sports have to follow the same? For instance, if we had one sport that we wanted to play now, but every other sport we wanted to play later, or do they all have to be all now or all later?
That can be a decision that the league could come out and say, hey, we think, I think there was, I don't even know where it was in this, I don't even know if it was our state, but somebody had talked about the fact they were allowing tennis to play in the fall and golf, but no doubles tennis. It was all singles tennis only. So, that was a decision that was made to allow tennis and golf, but they didn't want to do doubles tennis. So, but the Central League could decide that, tennis and golf, okay, we're going to play those sports in the fall and let them run out because their time schedules are different. So every sport has their own window, their own calendar of when their competitions and how many competitions can occur.
If I could just chime in for a second. All of our team sports, for the most part, in the fall season require 3 weeks of practice. But if we're specifying tennis and golf, there are less requirements for them. You only need 3 practices for golf before you can have your first competition. You only need 1 week of tennis. Those 2 sports start up a little quicker, partly because their regular seasons usually end earlier. So as weather and daylight become more of a concern for those two sports, it's a quicker startup for those ones.
Oh, Ms. Wenzel, sorry, Dave. It feels like this is very time sensitive, but it feels like there's a lot of answers that the PIAA still doesn't have. How can we at least have the opportunity to think this through so that we can try to do right by our students without some of these answers? Because theoretically it's in the laps of the school board, but we are sort of beholden to the Central League and it's circular. And it's very confusing for someone who's sitting in all of our shoes. I mean, we want to make this a value. I would think that everyone on the board wants at least information to be able to come up with the answer that they think is appropriate. And I really feel at a loss.
This is related. I was gonna ask, when is the Central League meeting? Like, how does the Central League meet? You've told us about PIAA meetings, and I'm wondering about that.
The Central
We
League,
are beholden to them. Everybody's writing to us, but we're sort of beholden to them.
sure, the Central League athletic directors are meeting Thursday morning.
So it sounds like, just to piggyback on this, so the work session for PIAA that's scheduled for this week, we wouldn't expect to hear anything from that. We would be waiting until the board meeting next week to get some more official guidance on accommodations.
Yeah, the official action, I mean, it's like your board meeting, the official action cannot take place until the official board meeting. So the work session next week is to look at truly what bylaws and regulations have to be. Now, the staff at PIAA has had to pull in, and we've gotten samples from all different kinds of states. Delaware went to a 3-season model after July 1 or after January 1. So that's the Delaware model. New Jersey has a different model. Like, we have models from all over the country to really look at, and the staff has been looking at that. So I don't, and Pat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you heard anything by starting your official practice. We just can't proceed with competition at this point until we get those answers from the PIAA. You're safe, and if you get your practices in and we can start competition, then we start competition. But that's one way you can work around that time-sensitive nature of this decision.
Sure.
And that's the one, we have that authority. So that's the one thing we can do and we have control over. When can we start practice? And then practice. And then when the Central League and the PIAA decide what they're going to do, we're prepared to do it if we choose to. That's about all we can do.
Pat, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that, yes, we could start practice. I would imagine that most of our coaches need a little bit of lead time before, just so they can get all their arrangements in place. But we could start practice. And if we decide to take that alternate model in March, that would be considered open gyms, where it was basically voluntary workouts continued. But we could also structure it in a way that it would allow us to start in October if we were looking to move forward with that option.
And does the work session, does anything get shared with the public from that about what models are being coalesced around, or not really?
At that point in time, no, because we don't literally act upon anything. What we do is we receive the information about what bylaws have to be adjusted to accommodate any type of alternative they want to put out. So other than that, that information doesn't come out public until the week after.
Okay.
Now, the districts may communicate back to the different leagues information to consider based upon those bylaws and regulations that get pointed out to us on Wednesday. But I don't know if they'll have it to the Central League by Thursday or not.
Okay. Well, there's definitely a lot to think about here. And it seems like we'll have to decide whether we are waiting on that PIAA board meeting, and that's a week from Wednesday, right?
Correct.
Okay. Which would give a lot more specificity around the options on the table, which may be make a lot of sense at this point, but this was incredibly helpful to share all of these mechanics and logistics with us, because it's not obvious. Let's just put it that way. More intuitive. So thank you. We'll let you go. I'm sure you have many things to do. And again, we're really appreciative of you spending your evening with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Palmer, anything to wrap up with our focus topics, or are we ready to move on?
We are ready to move on. A lot to swallow.
Okay. All right. So that takes us to the section on the agenda for audience recognition for response to items for action on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the board have been and continue to be encouraged to call 610-892-3470, extension 1102, to leave the recorded comments for the board, subject to a 3-minute time limit. Anything left prior to 5 o'clock today has been transcribed and made available to the board. Anything called in after 5 o'clock but prior to the end of this meeting will still be transcribed and still distributed to the board and made a part of the record, but will not be acknowledged during the meeting this evening. Kelly, do we have any comments for items on the agenda? I know we have some comments, but I think they may be for
they're all related to items that we are not actually voting on today, and so therefore would technically be part of the later audience recognition in the agenda.
Okay, so we'll come back to those hopefully soon. So our first items for action are the approval of the August 17th regular business meeting minutes, and I so move. Do we have a second?
Second, Chapin.
Thank you, Chapin. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Mr. Ballas?
Aye.
Ms. Domino?
Aye.
Dr. Downey?
Aye.
Dr. Huff?
Aye.
Mr. Cudis?
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz?
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman?
Aye.
Dr. Grandy?
Aye.
The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that takes us to personnel. We have quite a few items on personnel. There are 16 items for action. Are there any on the list that anyone on the board would like to separate from the rest? Okay. So bear with me. We have the approval of 2 retirements as indicated in the agenda. We have the approval of new appointments with the dates as described in the agenda, and I'll just read through those quickly. Julia Cooperstein, a kindergarten and special education teacher. Carly Del Rus, a 2nd grade teacher in the online academy. Megan Del Rossi, an ELA teacher at the middle school. Nicole Delente, a special education teacher at the middle school. Anna Gabriel, an English language arts teacher at the middle school. Cassandra Karcher, a 4th grade teacher at West. Brooke Kuberski, a special ed teacher at the middle school. David Neal, a computer science teacher at the middle school. Sarah Pincus, a ELA teacher at the middle school. Alyssa Pine, a 4th grade teacher in the online academy. Emily Reeder, English language arts at the high school. Amelia Sisko, 3rd grade teacher in the online academy. Kristen Sikowski, an elementary school counselor in the online academy. Amy White, a 5th grade teacher in the online academy. David Bear, a science and social studies teacher at the middle school. Kathleen Wirt, a special education teacher in the online academy. Lawrence Kelly, a special education teacher at the middle school. And Emily Fries, a health and physical education teacher at the high school. Moving on to the next items, we have 10 leaves of absence as described in the agenda. We have 2 changes of assignment effective beginning of the 2020-2021 school year as described in the agenda. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through the agenda here on my screen. We have one change of assignment effective August 26th as described in the agenda. We have 1 change of assignment effective August 27th as described in the agenda. We have 3 additional assignments effective August 31st as described in the agenda. We have a change in salary status for Robert Zakarzuski as described in the agenda. We have 1 teacher eligible for tenure, Marlena O'Kane. We have the approval of compensation for additional staff, Allison Schmidt, for the Student and Staff Wellness Committee earned during the 2020 summer at the rate of $37 per hour as stipulated. Total hours not to exceed 15. We have the approval of 5 additional workdays for Marlena O'Kane at our per diem rate during the 2020 summer. We have the approval for all school nurses for an additional 5 workdays at their per diem rate or per hour rate not to exceed 55 days total during the 2020 summer. We have the approval of flex time compensation for speech and language pathologists during the 2019-2020 school year at the rate of $37 per hour as stipulated. We have the approval of curriculum and activity supplementals as described in the agenda. The district does reserve the right to rescind this contract due to the pandemic if such programming can't take place. We have the approval of the 2020-2021 game worker rates as stipulated. And we have the approval of payment of unused sick days for 4 employees as described. All items in this section are as attached or described in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Marilyn.
Thank you, Marilyn. Do we have a second?
Second, Jerry Ballas.
Thank you, Jerry. Any discussion? All right, Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Ms. Tamino,
Aye.
Dr. Downey,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cudis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Jen?
Aye. I'm sorry, my space bar button isn't working, I guess. Just one aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy,
Aye.
personnel items pass with a vote of 8-0.
Thank you, Ms. Fagora. And so that takes us to curriculum, where we have 4 items for action. Are there any items on the list anyone would like to separate from the rest? Okay. We have the approval of the related service provider contracts for the 2019-2020 school year, the 2020 extended school year, and the 2020-2021 school year as stipulated. We have the approval of the 2020 extended school year and 2020-2021 school year tuition contracts as stipulated. We have the approval of the educational services agreement for the students noted in item C. We have the approval for educational research by Gina Ross in the district. Items in this section are as attached or described in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Chapin.
Thank you, Chapin. Do we have a second?
Second, Larry Cudis.
Thank you, Larry. Any discussion? All right, Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Dr. Downey,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cudis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Ms. Semino,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The curriculum items pass the vote of 8-0.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fagora. That takes us to finance. We have 3 items for approval. Are there any on the list anyone on the board would like to separate from the rest? Okay. First, we have the awarding of a contract to Bertolet Construction for an amount of $48,750 for the high school mezzanine project pending solicitor review to be paid from capital reserve funds. Next, we have the approval of the proposal from Cirilli Associates Incorporated to provide engineering consultant services from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. Next, we have the approval of the proposal from Qualtrics and Red Pepper Software to provide symptom tracking software at an annual cost of $12,000 with a one-time $3,000 implementation fee. And this was the item described by Gina Ross earlier. All the items are as attached or described in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Kelly Walkman.
Thank you, Kelly. Do we have a second?
Second, Marilyn Huff.
Thank you, Marilyn. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cudis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Ms. Semino,
Aye.
Dr. Downey,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The items pass 8-0.
Thank you, Ms. Fagora. Next, we move on to other items for voting on the agenda. We have two in this section. First, we have the acknowledgement of the resignation of Michelle Downey as our DCIU representative effective August 27th, 2020. And related, we have the appointment of Lawrence Cudis as the DCIU board representative through June 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
I heard Jerry, I think.
Yes.
A second. Is that coming from Michelle, maybe?
Second from Michelle Downey.
Thank you, Michelle. Any discussion? Well, I just want to say that, one of the reasons this is on the agenda this evening is an enormous amount of work that Ms. Downey has been doing for the board. And so she's not one to walk away from any responsibilities, but I asked her if this is perhaps something that we might move over to someone else. And but she's given a tremendous amount of her time to the board, particularly over the last 6 months. And so we're deeply appreciative of all of her commitments. And thank you, Larry, for taking on this responsibility. Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Mr. Cudis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Ms. Semino,
Aye.
Dr. Downey,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The items pass 8-0.
Thank you, Ms. Fagora. So this does bring us back to audience recognition for response to topics not on the agenda. So I will turn things over to Kelly here. I think we have 8 comments.
Yes, pardon me, excuse me. Yes, we received 8 comments that were phoned in by the 5 p.m. deadline for tonight's board meeting. And just a reminder that it's we read into the record only those comments that were phoned in by 5 p.m. And anything that's received after the 5 p.m. deadline is included in the minutes of the board meeting that are posted following approval. First comment comes from Todd Strine on Riverview Road in Swarthmore. Dear Wallingford-Swarthmore School District, School Board, and administrators. At tonight's meeting, for as soon as possible thereafter, would you please provide the community with an update on total student enrollment compared with last year, along with statistics on daily attendance since the start of the 2020-2021 school year, both for the online academy and also via the virtual classroom sessions. Thank you. So a follow-up item for us on that one. Second comment is from David and Jennifer Bloom of Guernsey Road in Swarthmore. Dear board members, we would like to pose the following questions to the board for the board meeting on September 14th. Number 1, what do the teachers in our district need to feel safe before re-entering the schools? Number 2, what preparations within the schools need to be completed between now and October 12th to open at least the elementary schools to ensure the safety of both the students and teachers? Number 3, Does the district have thermometers, sanitizer, tents, masks, plexiglass dividers, etc.? Number 4, have the HVAC systems in every school been updated? Number 5, does every window in every classroom open? Number 6, has a professional cleaning service been hired to clean or train our cleaning staff? Number 7, does each school have a designated isolation area in case a child or teacher becomes ill at school and needs to wait before being sent home? And number 8, what strategies can WSSD adopt from the preparations private schools and parochial schools have implemented? Thank you. Next comment comes from Jency Weeks of Sykes Lane in Wallingford. I'm leaving a message for the board concerning that there's not been an announcement about voting to get our kids back into school. It's becoming very detrimental to these children. They're getting depressed. People are starting to have to buy blue light glasses for their children because of the retina damage. School academia is starting to fail, and as a whole, this is starting to derail our community. So the lack of the board not being vigilant and on top of this is very disappointing. This needs to be taken care of as soon as possible and heard with open ears. And I'm sorry, it's a little difficult to tell the next part of the transcription. There is a lot of he said, she said, and a lot of political play going on in the school board, and that is starting to affect our children. So this vote needs to happen and be in the favor of the children, not in the favor of the board members who are sitting and giving the call that they want to get. I'm calling on behalf of the Swarthmore Wallingford children to get them back to school. Thanks. Next comment is from sorry, it's been a long night. Albert Federico. Good afternoon. I'm calling to register my support for the immediate return to in-person education at our schools. In my opinion, the board's primary function is to provide for in-person education of our students. Otherwise, we would have enrolled in online education years ago. I believe that the board was unreasonably cautious in delaying in-person education, and I would support it restarting immediately. Thank you. Next comment is from Rebecca Tenney Soyero. I apologize if I messed that up, pronounced that incorrectly. Good afternoon. I would like to say thank you to the many teachers and administrators who've worked incredibly hard to start the school year virtually. While it is still not an ideal situation, the engagement of the teachers and their ability to juggle internet issues, multiple learners on screens, and the occasional inattentive students speaks volumes to their dedication. While the virtual experience is much better than the spring, I would like to encourage the board and school leadership to begin to think about how to open schools again soon. Infection rates are fairly low, and there are effective ways to get children back into the schools, even if we start with elementary and work our way up through the grades. Our children continue to miss out on valuable social interactions, the expected new experiences of moving up to a new school, and also lack the physical and emotional safety that some of them need. We also continue to exacerbate disparities in resources in education. As the district considers getting the children back into school, I do encourage leadership to reconsider the high school hybrid schedule. The schedule does not seem to engage the students in a meaningful way, and there are alternative schedules that we should consider to allow more interactions with teachers and peers in a safe manner. I thank you all for your ongoing work during these unprecedented times. Thank you. Next is from Autumn Mansour on Dartmouth Avenue in Swarthmore. I have 3 questions. Number 1, why in the cohort model are high school students slated to go 2 half days as opposed to 2 full days? It seems the risks are the same, but the best benefits of 2 full days are significantly greater compared to the benefits of 2 half days. Second, why are high school students going on a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday schedule for the hybrid model as opposed to alternating by week? It seems like alternating by week would give the students and teachers more in-person time and would lessen the large disinfecting efforts that need to be done between cohorts. In fact, there will be a 25% increase if they did alternating weeks in the in-person learning. I was just wondering what factors went into that decision. And 3, when will the decision be made and communicated as far as what model we will follow for October? Thank you very much. Next comment is from Derek Ryder on Beatty Road and Media. I'm appreciative that we have focused topics tonight on return to in-person learning in our athletic program. Since we have many residents supporting back to school, I will focus on athletics. 1, Why at the present time are we taking the position to delay fall and winter sports until 2021 when hundreds of our district student athletes and thousands of Central League athletes are currently playing competitively against local and non-local teams outside of school with private or community-run sports programs? Not every district athlete has the ability to afford or have transportation to such programs. So we are taking that public school opportunity away from them by canceling sports to the end of 2020. In addition, football does not have that opportunity as there are no club sports for football. 2, if we go with a modified winter and spring sports season and place fall sports in between, will we have coaches, trainers, officials, etc. available for the delayed fall sports schedule? These individuals may already be scheduled for other events, sports, or be unavailable due to the new seasons we created. 3, something to consider. If a student athlete is injured in a winter sport and cannot play in the now rescheduled fall sport in February, but the fall sport was their best opportunity to earn a financial scholarship or admission to post-secondary education, can the district be held financially liable? Remember, 90% of Pennsylvania student athletes are playing fall sports right now in school, and we are going to change that seasonality order. These athletes are also behind others due to recruiting and will miss out on evaluations and open positions at the next level. Thank you. And the final comment is from Patricia Lee on Briarcrest Drive in Rose Valley. Our family has 2 children in the schools. We just want to say that we are in support of the school board having our children go to virtual school until this pandemic is over, until there's a safe vaccine safely administered to all of us. Otherwise, we're just going to be put into a never-ending cycle of coming back to physical school, having positive cases, being shut down, going back to virtual school, return, and have the cycle repeat over and over again. And for the most normalcy for our children, for the most consistency for our community, staff, teachers, and parents, it is best to follow the science right now and remain virtual until the science allows us to go back. Thank you. That concludes the comments.
Thank you, Kelly. I believe our solicitor, Kyle, Mr. Berman, would like to raise an issue.
Yes, I noticed on the agenda and the item that was voted on was to appoint Mr. Cutis to be the new Delaware County Intermediate Unit representative from the district. However, the school code calls for it to be a nomination from the district with an appointment by the IU itself. So I would simply ask that we take that motion again so that we correct that for the record.
Okay, and so because we voted on those 2 items together, I assume we vote on both of them again? Is that?
We don't need to vote on both of them again. If somebody could simply move to nominate Mr. Cutis to the IU, that would be sufficient. Then we'd have that vote on just that one item.
So
Great.
moved.
So moved what?
Would like to move to nominate Larry Cutis to a position on the DCIU board to be
I'll
voted on
second
by
that.
the DCIU board.
And I heard a second from Jerry.
Yes.
Thank you,
Do
Jerry.
I vote on this, Kyle? This is Larry.
Yes, you can vote on it as well.
That's weird.
That works, Larry.
Or let's just say I would hope that you would choose to vote for yourself for it, thinking that you're qualified.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Is this in the new business now, Dave, or no?
No, we went back to revote. Is that correct, Kyle? Or are we actually?
No, that is correct. We're revisiting a vote that was already taken.
Yes,
Okay.
we
So
moved
now
back before audience recognition.
Okay. I
So-
have a question under new business, so
Okay.
let me know.
Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Ms. Semino,
Aye.
Dr. Downey,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cudis, Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The nomination passes 8-0.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So that takes us to school board reports. It's a time for reports from board members serving on district subcommittees or out-of-district roles. Does anyone have a report that they would like to share this evening?
I will.
Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
I had, in the interest of time, I'll try to make this short. So the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board Subcommittee has been busy and coordinating a number of things. One is an equity audit that would be conducted by Bob Jarvis at the Delaware Valley Consortium of Excellence in Equity, which would involve a very thorough, objective process of looking at our data, listening to the voices of students and staff, to really look at how equitable many of our processes are regarding student achievement, student outcomes, placement, access to resources, student treatment, discipline, things like that, which should help us develop a sense of what we want to focus on going forward. I would add that the teachers had their first component of the Southern Poverty Law Center's Teaching Tolerance Program, which brought 20 to 30 social studies teachers together to look at social justice standards and anti-bias education. We have a history vertical team conducting a curriculum review, really looking at what the coursework that we offer now, how we can strengthen and diversify and make sure that we cover all aspects of all individuals' histories in our curriculum. And then the committee itself, the action committee, met and broke out into a couple of different groups that will be working on a few different areas for us. One is around communication and feedback from the community, and basically like how do we hear from voices that are often not heard from the community? How do we move outward and listen more and have a better sense of the experiences of all members of our very diverse community? A second area that the committee is working on is on establishing more clear guidelines on hiring practices and how to recruit and hire and retain diverse staff, teachers, and administrators. And then the third group is working on some very specific ways to operationalize the incorporation of diversity in all levels of the curriculum from K to 12. And we have our next action committee meeting on the 17th, this Wednesday.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you to you and to Kelly and Jerry. I know you all have been putting a lot of work into pushing this effort forward, and I appreciate that. Any other reports from other board members before we move on? Okay. Do we have any old business? Do we have any new business? Jen?
I think this would technically fall under new business. It's that, I know that the typical protocol, and I think there's been some reason for that in the past, has been that we get these comments, these audience comments, and I guess I'm not exactly sure how or if they're addressed after our meeting. So, I mean, I can read some of these comments and know that during the course of our meeting, there were several questions that did have answers during our meeting. But for those that are within the purview of our school and that were asked, I guess I'm wondering in terms of new business, if you know, I know that some of them are directly related to the high school. And is someone going to sort of follow up on them and either answer them or reach out to those people? Because I'm looking at them and some of the questions are very relevant to this meeting, and we kind of move on with some of, and it's been a long meeting, I understand that, but I guess I'm just wondering how those questions will be answered or addressed after this meeting ends.
Sure. I mean, I think that, I guess many of those questions, I think maybe Dr. Palmer, we can determine can be directed to particular administrators, because I think how they get answered, people ask a variety of questions that I think are best directed to individuals, and for ones that were hopefully addressed during the meeting tonight, then maybe the question is really, you know, was your, in some cases, was your question answered, or do you continue to have questions? And so, Dr. Palmer, is there a way we can kind of go through those 8 that were sent in and then direct them to the appropriate staff member?
I will do that afterwards, and I'll make sure that the right person gets it and that we know who's answering what.
Thank
you. Oh, you're welcome. Any other new business? All right. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you, David.